Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. Himself, George, joined once more by Ayman for a very special discussion. We are, of course, doing a sort of sweep of the major news from San Diego Comic-Con, of course, taking place in America as we speak. It is the final day, but there are no major panels for us, so we can get this video done a little bit earlier than usual. So we're going to be going through all the major news, but before we even go over a plan anything, Ayman, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I mean, can't complain. It's a little bit warmer, not as warm as it was last week, but still nice and warm.
Yeah, and for anyone that didn't join us last week, we went live on Monday for a Miss Marvel spoiler discussion. Just doing it very late. We wouldn't have time to edit, so we jumped it a few days early. So if you're a fan of Marvel, take a look at that discussion if you get the chance. We would actually probably bring Miss Marvel up in retrospect today to a point. But as I said, it is San Diego. We're going to be going through the major news. And for anyone curious about home, we have done this before for other conventions, Celebration. Obviously, we did panels sort of every day. DC Fandom, we would do mop-ups very much like this one today. And I'm pretty sure many years ago, there were also some San Diego comic discussions when I used to run the news video series as well on this, which would be great to bring back one day. Just a lot of work for that. And what we are going to do, as I said, we've got some of the big panels. Me and Ayman have a schedule. And what we've done, we've put in the name of the date, the studio, or the project. And we're just going to talk about what has been unveiled, whether it's a major but minor part of news, whether it's a trailer, whether it's posters. We're just going to sort of go through the major stuff. So this isn't going to be just a 2-hour slog of reading bullet points or anything like that. We're going to give our thoughts on it. And for anyone, that's curious, of course, there's going to be probably a very heavy focus on Marvel, who basically just dominated the weekend because that's what they do at San Diego Comic-Con. And we'll also get to talk about DC and for various other reasons of why they don't. But with that in mind, I'm going to sort of put you on the spot very quickly. I don't think you did, but San Diego, obviously we know this is one of the major sort of calendar of the year for film and TV stuff. How do you feel with it as an event? Like, do you follow it much? Do you check the major news? Because we know they don't broadcast it live. I'm sort of curious of your background to it.
I mean, I don't follow it live. I mean, I spend a lot of time on YouTube anyway. So when stuff starts getting like viral and starts picking up views, stuff like that, I'll watch the trailers, which was similar to what I did this year anyway. So like when the Rings of Power trailer came out, it came up on my recommended, so I'll watch that. And the same with a lot of the other ones like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. I saw that the trailer went out. I saw that one on Twitter, so I went to YouTube to watch that. So that's just how I get it from like Instagram and Twitter mostly, and then whatever's on my recommended on YouTube mostly.
That's fair. And I mean, guys, you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons because that'll be one of the first things we speak about. A film I didn't even know was in production, which is quite amazing when you think about how many sort of big films there's going to be and what we'll show in this weekend. But what we'll do, we're going to jump in with Thursday. Actually, it's pretty much perfect timing. So for anyone at home, if you are watching, please do comment your thoughts. Maybe not just on San Diego, your thoughts on the projects being announced, thoughts on the trailers, the posters, stuff you're looking forward to, stuff you're not. And of course, if you enjoy this video, hit the subscribe button. We do cover conventions, as I've said, and it's something we aim to do a little bit more in person as well. We'd love to cover more events in person. Obviously, not something like this. This would be too much. I don't think I could cope. But Star Wars Celebration is in England next year, and that will be covered on the channel. And just any other conventions and major events. So please do comment, subscribe for that kind of stuff. And if you want to follow us on social medias, it's the best place to find out about where we go live and everything else we do. You can join us, which is Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy. And we have a link to Redbubble in the description below. So please do check us out on there. We also have a Dave in the comments. Good evening, my friend. Very good to see you actually as well. I can't wait to get some of your thoughts on these. But if we're talking Thursday, so we'll sort of kick off now. As I said, this is mainly going to be about Marvel. I want to ask you, have you ever heard or seen of a show called Severance? I'm really curious for this. Sorry that I put on the spot again.
No, I haven't actually. When I saw that you put it in the schedule, I was like, I had no idea what that is. I've just done some research as we were talking. It seems like sci-fi. So it's something that I'm definitely interested in, like sci-fi as a thing. So, I mean, with a new season being announced, it might be something that I'll probably watch the trailer on if there is one, and then possibly pick that up. But it's not something I've heard of now.
Yeah. This Severance is interesting. So Charlie, who's been in our videos, is a massive fan. It's another one streaming on Apple, and everyone I've spoke to has absolutely loved season one. And I was very surprised to see it brought up at San Diego, only because it's a very new show. It's more, I mean, I think it's like a even office based, not comedy, but a sort of drama with some sort of black comedy edges. I'm not 100% sure, but Adam Scott's in it. I know there's some big names in there, and a lot of people do enjoy it. So Severance is one I know nothing about. But what they basically had, they formally announced season 2 being in production. They showed a blooper reel, and the whole cast came out. So I'd imagine like anyone that was attending the event who watches it probably had an absolute blast with them all being there. A little bit similar to what we do in the shadows today, which obviously I'm not going to cover. Most of the cast there in person for the new series, not airing every week, so not really much they can show. We have Bavaria in the comments. Excellent seeing my friend, of course. We'll be getting some Marvel chat going later on, so I'm really going to appreciate some of your input in that as well. But moving from Severance, I guess we want to talk about, I don't want to call it a headline from Thursday, but Thursday is very quiet. And obviously we have the trailer for Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I have never played Dungeons and Dragons in my life. I know that Tom Woods, who jumps on channel, is quite a big fan of it. He's played a lot, and I know culturally, Dungeons and Dragons is one of the like major fantasy properties spanning decades, almost being the very first one. And we're just going to point everyone to our Stranger Things reviews, where nothing to do this film, but Stranger Things is probably going to push D&D back into the limelight ever so slightly with season 4. And we had a trailer for a film I just didn't know was in existence, and I'm just going to say I thought it looked quite good. What do you think? We'll go over a little bit of it shortly, but like, did you know this film was in production? Like, it's such a random thing.
Yeah, it was a random thing. I mean, I know they. If I'm not mistaken, they did do a Dungeons and Dragons film a couple of years back. But it's not one of those that gets like a lot of acclaim or anything. It's just sort of in there. But this one, I think the trailer looked like it wasn't taking itself too seriously. I think it gave off that Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, where it wasn't going to be too serious, but it was going to try and do something. I have done one campaign at Dungeons and Dragons before, back in my uni days, and I mean, ours didn't go very well, but I mean, this trailer does look really interesting. But yeah, it was kind of out of the blue. I didn't know it was a thing. But yeah, it looks really interesting. I'll probably go watch. I mean, judging by the reviews, judging by the trailer, sorry, I think I will go watch it when it comes out, because it just looks interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, my knowledge of it, I know that there are like campaigns. Some people can play it for years. Some people can play it for obviously a short time. It's a really like interesting thing that I've just never. It's not that I've avoided. I've just never played it. And I've never really known people that have that are in my circle. And it's the kind of thing I know I mentioned Tom, but it's the kind of thing if someone ever said, "Do you want to give it a go?" I'd probably be like, "Why not? Like, give it a go." It's something I've not done, and it very much with those sort of games, those sort of like board games. A lot of it I actually quite liked when I was younger, and you just again, it's finding the time or people to play with. So it is interesting, and you know, it's just worth mentioning. What surprised me the most was the actual cast. You've got Chris Pine in the lead role, playing the character of Edgin, who is a bard. Again, Dungeons and Dragons players, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to know what most of this terminology or race thing means for this. I know it's fictional. I know people have attachments, but it's still fictional. We've got Michelle Rodriguez. I can never pronounce his name right, from Bridgerton, who's in The Grey Man this weekend. Is it like Roger Jean Page, who's popping up everywhere now? And Marvel deleted his casting announcement from Secret Invasion for next year last night, which kind of spoils the fact he's going to be in Secret Invasion. We've got Justice Smith, who I think was it Detective Pikachu. I remember him from one of the Jurassic World films, and the one that really blew my mind, Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant's in a Dungeons and Dragons film, and I don't know, like as you said, like the trailer is weird because if it was really serious, I don't think it would work. Like if it was this, not saying it wouldn't work, but for a 2-hour film on like a 40+ year sort of game thing, which can go on for hours, a mega dark, serious fantasy film, I don't think would work. And I know, did you ever watch Warcraft? I didn't. I think that was meant to be quite similar, where it like completely bombed. I know it's got its fans though. I think if I'm right, the Warcraft community really liked it.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those fans. Yeah, I did enjoy that film.
And they couldn't make the jump to bring in the general audience because I feel there was so much. I don't want to say stigma attached to World of Warcraft, but getting the general audience to watch World of Warcraft is probably one of the trickiest things they can do in marketing. And Dungeons and Dragons, I think, is going to be very similar in that regard. But we've got a comment from Dave saying as well, the cast look like they're having a great time. There's a kind of tone to it where it's not satire or parody, but it looks so fun. It's very different to what I would imagine Dungeons and Dragons to be, which is actually kind of fascinating in the same way, because obviously a lot of people that do play it probably are having a lot of fun playing it. Does that sound weird?
Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, it's one of those, because when I played it, we did have fun. And it's interesting they bring up the Warcraft sort of thing with it as well, because I was a big Warcraft player as well, and the people that I played it with, we linked the sort of, we came up with our own campaign and linked it to the sort of Warcraft mythos and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's meant to be fun. I mean, like from Stranger Things, it can get like quite dark, but I mean, generally, the people that play it have fun. I mean, I don't play it anymore, but the person that I used to play it with, I think he's still playing it, and he does really have fun with it. He spends like, I think he dedicates his Sundays, like a good chunk of it, just playing with other people. So yeah, it's one of those that, as long as the film doesn't take itself too seriously, I think it will be a good film.
Yeah, no, very well said. And it'll be interesting. I think it's March that one's due out. We'll obviously get more trailers later on this year, or maybe the start of next year. And I'll be, like I said, I'm sold. I'll be there. I'll be watching it. I know we've got some big films out in March as well, but it will be one that I think a lot of people could go. We've got Bavaria saying he played only the PC games based on it. The 2000 movie was horrible. And also Dave, Hugh Grant is entering the peak of his career, where he realizes he shouldn't take himself so seriously. Paddington 2, The Gentleman, now this. And that's a great point. I've got a lot of time for Hugh Grant. I think when you're younger, he's kind of that. He was the one, not the one everyone fancied, but he was like the grown adult that all the sort of women swooned for. And he was always in the rom-coms and everything. And it's been really fascinating. I'm not going to get into politics, but obviously everybody knows how politically active he is. And it's not the sort of person you ever think that would have been based off his rep when you're younger. And if anyone wants to know one funny thing about him recently, when Boris did his resignation speech, it was Hugh Grant's idea for them to play the Benny Hill theme. So anyone that watches that and hears that theme, that's because Hugh Grant asked the guy with the boombox to play it, which is just sensational. So yeah, that's a comedy angle. I won't get into the politics about our dreadful country. But that's going to leave us for Thursday. I'm going to say this as well. We're not at San Diego. There's a lot of other panels that happened that we aren't there for, but we are mainly doing like the major sort of Hall H panels. So again, someone might be there. Jed on our channel's there. We'll bring him up a few times because he was at one of the massive panels actually we're going to speak about in a bit. So go follow at Jed Wagman on Twitter. If you want to see some photos and stuff, he's jumped on a lot of our videos. Got a lot of time for Jed, and he's having a great time over there. But we're going to move this to Friday, and we're going to get into a controversial topic. We're going to talk the Rings of Power. Now, there's two of us in this video tonight. Sim, who people may remember from the Godfather video. He was on Peacemaker with us. And I think he might be on something else. I'm trying to remember. Sim knows a lot about Tolkien. He's read the Silmarillion. He's read, obviously, Lord of the Rings. He's very aware with it. I think we all watched The Hobbit when they were coming out of school with some other people we knew that were big on Tolkien as well. So I'm going to enter this a bit blind. The Rings of Power, obviously, we had a trailer about a week ago where we announced a new logo, which I'm actually going to bring up for everybody at home. So the Rings of Power, as a little plug, we will be covering it on this channel. There will be weekly spoiler discussions happening on the Sundays after the episodes air. And we've got our lovely updated Lord of the Rings logo at the top right there. So that's the logo we'll be using on the videos, the official Cinema Savvy Lord of the Rings logo. So we will be covering that. It's just had a very good upgrade from last year alongside the intro. And as I said, they're going to be on Sundays. The series is airing from Friday the 2nd of September. During a time, which we'll get to later, we're going to have Cassian. We're going to have Game of Thrones. We're entering one of the most stacked seasons in TV I can ever remember. Can you imagine like 5 years ago, someone telling you we're going to have weekly Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and Game of Thrones things all happening at the same time? Can you comprehend that if it had been 5 years ago?
It would have been a bit mad. I think because we have so many streaming platforms now, it just makes it a lot easier. Because I think even 5 years ago, I think Netflix was still a streaming service, but we didn't have
slowly getting bigger.
Yeah, but we didn't have the likes of like Disney Plus and Amazon and all that sort of stuff. So it makes it easier. I think people can pick and choose what they want now, which makes it a lot easier for people to access what they want.
No, 100%. And I guess talking this trailer, obviously we had the one about a week ago. It was like a second teaser of sorts, but the one that came on Friday in the panel was almost a. It was like, I want to say, a story trailer. It's the most information we've actually had about the context of the show, the series. Obviously, I haven't read the Silmarillion. I won't be reading the Silmarillion. I read the Hobbit, and I'm going to be blunt, I didn't enjoy it. So I've not gone to watch. I've not read Lord of the Rings after that. It was just a sort of jumping off point that this writer's not for me. However, I am excited for the show because I don't mind the Lord of the Rings films. You know, I have them behind me. I've met most of the casts across conventions and at red carpets, and you know, it's a very, very fascinating. What would you say? Not genre. Its story's fascinating in regards to Tolkien being one of the first authors of creating literal universe. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting. And again, if Sim was here, he'd be able to sort of give us a little bit more info. But if I'm going to give my thoughts on this trailer, I think it looks outstanding. Again, to me, I view the series as okay. You know, it's set in a different age. I've always known that. It's not going to be the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings films. It's a different age preceding all of that. Set, I don't know if it was hundreds of thousands of years before, but the characters we're going to see that we haven't on screen before are going to be very different. And that's what the show is to me as a viewer. It's a new age for us to explore. And if I'm going to talk about it from like a production standpoint, I think it looks fucking outstanding. It's the most expensive show ever made in history. It's got the most expensive budget ever made for a media, okay, not including games, for a TV or film series. It's got the biggest budget ever. And me looking at that trailer on my computer, I'm kind of just sat there saying, okay, like, I can't wait to watch it on 4K my setup in September because it looks like Lord of the Rings. The moment you see these establishing shots, what kind of clowns are saying this isn't Middle Earth? Like, of course it's Middle Earth. I just want to kind of get your thoughts. I mean, we can go into some other bits of it. I'm not going to, obviously, you know, people at home are not doing freeze frame breakdowns of trailers. I've not got that. We've got so many trailers to talk about tonight, and this wouldn't be one I'd want to do. But how do you feel with the trailer, with the series upcoming, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely interested. I mean, you can tell it's the most expensive budget because of how visually sort of impactful and how it looks visually. I think the only like people that are complaining, I mean, the main gripe that people have is the sort of like lore accurate stuff. But I mean, the Lord of the Rings films, they're critically acclaimed, and they're all like a lot
They've
of
all made
Lord of the Rings
changes.
fans are big fans, but they're
They've all
not.
made changes from the books as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I was watching Return of the King today when it was nothing else on, and the scene where Aragorn's sword gets forged. I mean, that happens a lot earlier. He leaves Rivendell with his sword, like, but I think we're in a sort of age now. I mean, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer or anything, but I think we're in an age where people can complain a lot easier. Whereas when the original trilogy came out, there were still those forums and stuff, but it wasn't as easy to sort of be negative about it. So I think people are complaining just to complain. But I mean, yeah, this trailer looks amazing. I'm definitely going to watch it when it airs because, yeah, it looks great. Story wise, it looks really interesting.
And that's kind of it. Like you mentioned some of that stuff as well. You know, from what I remember, there was a post that went viral on Twitter. I'm going to actually reference Olden, who was on our channel recently, shortly as well. They'd gone and found IMDb user ratings from before Fellowship came out.
Yeah.
And they were all chastising Peter Jackson. They were complaining that, oh my God, orcs are going to be like, you know, they're in like, they remind me of like what dogs and like horses are born in when they're in like bags and sacks.
Yeah.
They were complaining that you were going to see like orcs in sacks. Oh, how horrible it was that Arwen was going to have an extended role, which I only found out recently as well. And I'm just sort of sat there saying, hold on. I mean, Arwen's pretty terribly written in the Lord of the Rings films anyway, and they're telling me that that was actually extended, which is kind of even more stupid. And, you know, and this is kind of a vibe I have with all this, like the woke go broke nonsense you hear from a lot of people these days. And I'm going to say now, Olden Diaz, who joined us for a Kenobi discussion of A New Hope, on his podcast. He's just released a 3-hour episode with another guest, split in 2 parts, and it's basically about the rise of the alt-right in fandom. Primarily Star Wars, with them being a Star Wars podcast, but so much of it stems to that. So I'm going to ask anyone watching this, like, go follow Olden, who's been on the channel before. You can get Olden Diaz on Twitter, that Olden Diaz, sorry. And this incredible 3-hour structure, and it literally explains what happened and how these places were able to become prominent when it stemmed. And now we live in this sort of era where people, not to get into Star Wars because this is Lord of the Rings discussion, but it's like, oh, the prequels are great all along. Well, they weren't, because loads of the actors had death threats and quit acting or almost commit suicide. And they paint this picture that it was all fine when it wasn't. You know, there were documentaries made about George Lucas, like, destroying their childhood. These were funded documentaries by human beings as well. And I say destroyed childhood, they also use different terms in those. Obviously, South Park took the piss out of it and done it as well. And it's really interesting where we're heading with this, that I think because it's the first time, you know, most of these people probably don't like The Hobbit. I don't really care for The Hobbit. I didn't mind the films. I didn't think they were as good, but I just didn't understand why a 300-page book became like 3 long films. Yeah. That's my biggest problem with The Hobbit. But it's just amazing that, again, I can criticize The Hobbit because I've seen it. It's out in full. There's been 3 of them. And I just find it insane that people have like had this machine gun out because they've seen trailers with no story. They've almost just seen visuals. And we've got Bavaria with a great comment concerning the lore. I ruined my first watch Lord of the Rings because I love Tolkien so much and wanted a 100% accurate film. Luckily, I grew up. Books and comics are blueprints for the movies. So very well said. I never even thought of it that way. More. Blueprints. And this is it. This is what they base it off. And, you know, Bavaria, I'm sure you'd have seen there's like an animated Lord of the Rings film. That would have been different in its own right. And, you know, they're called adaptations.
Yeah, it says in the trailer.
Copy and paste.
It says in the trailer based on. I mean, you can't expect people to. It's like
characters and events created by insert writer here. It happens in Marvel stuff. It happens in so many stuff. And he's just put, it would be so boring if they were 100% adaptations. Yeah. And I'm kind of. I mean, I've not read Lord of the Rings. I'm sorry, so I don't have the answer for that one. I know obviously Silmarillion is like, from what I've heard. Well, if you people want to get into morals, it's published after the author's died by his son, like however many years later. So if you really want to get into morals, Tolkien never actually said publish that book, which is, you know, that's far more of an interesting question. Sorry, I was just speaking to Sim. He isn't able to join us. It would have helped with the Lord of the Rings thing. So we'll get him on for Rings of Power. And Bavaria again, bringing some more Tolkien stuff. Also, the Silmarillion is a collection of notes from Tolkien. And listen, people treat it like a Bible. If it's a collection of notes, then I really couldn't care less about. Again, it's published after he's died. I don't. It's not a story. It's not a book. It's probably just, you know, like a Bible of sorts, which probably gets them all off on stuff like that. But without delving into too much Lord of the Rings, it's a tricky one because there's just so much that's being attacked. And again, I'm approaching it as someone that isn't the biggest of fans. And again, you know, when I say I've met most of the cast, I think I've met like 7 out of the 9 Fellowship now, or 6 out of the 9, which is quite amazing. And a lot of people get upset about that. A true story. I've got some really funny stories in this. But that being said, you can see it behind me, my Lord of the Rings box set on the floor. It's signed by Peter Jackson, Viggo Mortensen, Ian McKellen. I've met John Rhys Davies, Orlando Bloom. I feel like someone else. I think I've not met like 2 of the Hobbits and Sean Bean. And the day I meet Sean Bean, we'll be talking Bond, not Lord of the Rings anyway. Sorry, I keep detracting. Any final thoughts on Lord of the Rings? Sorry, before we move in, because that's just a grey circle. But again, Bavaria, I'm appreciating your comments, my friend. And as I said, if you're a fan of this channel, you join us for the Marvel stuff, come join us for Lord of the Rings, because we'll be doing those weekly.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is I couldn't agree with him more. It is a blueprint. Again, if you copied it word for word, I mean, what's going to be the sort of motivation to go watch it? Because you already know what's going to happen, so there's no point in really watching it. You know, I mean, you're going to get a visual aspect of it, but I mean, apart from that, there's going to be no interest in there. So why copy it word for word? It's one of those ones. But if people have their views, they have their views, and they're obviously not going to change those views.
Just watch it. Just let an episode come out. It's going to be 5 seasons, 8 episodes a season. That's 40 hours of TV. Can't premeditate an opinion based off like probably 2.5 minutes total footage. Yeah, it's not including titles and shows. Like, it's just insane. And you know, you get then all this grab. Oh, this Tolkien expert left. Well, the Tolkien's grandson's like authorized the show, who over trumps the Tolkien expert. And there's loads of Tolkien scholars on the show anyway. There's one that was there at the panel on Friday. Again, like we've not watched the panels. They don't stream the panels. Obviously, Marvel and DC get more info on their panels, but the Lord of the Rings one, like they had experts on set. They were following the law. Again, we live in this sort of outrage society now where it's, as you said, Ayman, earlier, it's more accessible for these platforms. And when you've got like YouTube algorithms that's watching what you're saying, or they'll just think, oh, okay, subgenre Star Wars, what's the most popular Star Wars video? Someone being outraged, we'll then link that and we'll send people there. And it's just the grey area of social media. It's not even a grey area. It's just, you know how radicalized. It's not grey, isn't it? It's just a radicalized
people
area.
being in, it's like people are being in their own like echo chambers. So they see what they want to see. I mean, that's how social media works. They see what they want to see. So obviously, if they're gonna see this video of it being outrage, then that's what they're gonna get recommended, and then it blows up from there, basically.
Definitely. And as I said, everyone, please check out Alden Diaz's 2-part special. It's honestly eye-opening. And if you're curious about just how it covers the change of society and mobilizations, all that sort of stuff is really fascinating, eye-opening. And, you know, I think Bond's going to go through something similar when the next Bond's cast, irrelevant of what race they are, gender, nothing. I mean, we know it's going to be a male anyway. This is the thing, like they've said, the producers have said for years, it's going to be a male James Bond. And journalists still ask, is it going to be a woman to get, because they want people to be outraged to get the circulation and the clicks, and they know it's not going to happen. So yeah, all that sort of stuff is, thank God there's not a Bond panel at Sunday. That's what I'm saying. But if we want to talk about something else other than Rings of Power, a show that I've never watched part of pilot. I know Charlie and Neil are big fans. Walking Dead. I feel like, do you watch this, or did you used to watch this? I feel this has been brought up before.
Yeah, I watched the first season. I watched it all in one go. It was interesting. It wasn't my cup of tea, really. But I do know that it's got a big place in sort of like pop culture, because you've got the show, you've got the spin-offs, and then you've got the Telltale games, and then you've got characters sort of featuring. You got characters featuring in other sort of games, like in Tekken 7. Negan is a DLC player. So you can play as Negan, but you get that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but I do appreciate that it's got its own really hardcore following.
No, 100%. I'm with you on that, and I know a lot of people that still do watch it, as much as I sort of poke fun at them. And I think the big announcements that after this final series aired, there was going to be like spin-off films for the characters from the final season, which to me personally makes no sense. Maybe it makes more sense if I watch it, but for a TV series to end and then have more stories to tell about the main characters, that just doesn't work to me. And it's now been confirmed that there won't be films. I think it's Rick, the character, getting the spin-off, and the one played by, is it Michonne, I think the character's name as well. They're going to be getting a spin-off series rather than a films, which, if I'm going to be polite again, I don't watch it. I don't want to upset the Walking Dead fans. That's your budget down the drain. That's your confidence gone in whatever they had. I know the final half of the final season is airing soon. Will be on Disney Plus, broadcast here in the UK. But it's a very weird show, because I remember it was massive, and it would. I mean, me and you are the same age, but when I started college, which would be 10 years ago this year, which is pretty scary as well, actually. I feel like it just started. Like, I know a lot of people that watched Walking Dead, and it reminded me of those like college uni years, because I had like group chats where friends would speak nonstop about it, and I never felt like I was missing out because they'd spoiled everything, so I never needed to join in. But it's that show that I always forget, like, oh, it's still actually around. And a lot of people said there's been like multiple spin-off shows. And it's very interesting. As you said earlier, it's got its place in pop culture, which is probably the best term for it, because I think it will have a legacy, and when the series is done, that might benefit it in Tact 2. That it might be the sort of complete box, and a lot of people move to it, and it's definitely there for sort of pushing the zombie genre forward, I think.
Yeah, it was one of those. It's like, I think because from what I remember, it came out around the same time, or it became big around the same time, like World War Z was a thing as well.
Yeah.
So I think there was a couple of years where sort of zombie films were a big thing, and it was just taking over pop culture. And I think Walking Dead had a part to play in that, especially when the first season came out. It sort of pushed that sort of genre with those sorts of themes. I mean, yeah, if it's going to be the final season soon, I might go back and rewatch it, just purely based on the fact that it's had this big following, and maybe it got better after season 1. Maybe it was like Game of Thrones, where it took a little while to get started, and then once you're in it, you're in it. So I might, when I find time, go back and watch it. I mean, I've got Disney Plus, so I know that most of it's on there already. So it'd be one of those where if I'm struggling to find something to watch, stick with that one maybe.
No, 100%. It's really interesting for that and fair play as well. So, I said, anyone that watches Walking Dead, let us know. Let us know if we're wrong or if we've missed something. Again, it's not something we're too familiar with, but something we are very familiar with. We get to talk about Marvel for the first time of two big discussions. The Marvel Studios animation panel took place on Friday, which is quite incredible. We have a Marvel Studios animation panel, given that there's only been one animated show so far with one season. And obviously that's going to change. So this is the first big Marvel talk. I guess we'll kickstart. I'm going to say again, Jed was there. So if you don't follow Jed at Jed Bagman on our Twitter, he's got loads of pics. He was at that event itself, which is really cool. He was in the Hall H. I think it was in Hall H, or was it a secondary one? I don't know. But we can begin talking. Did you see the I'm Groot trailer? I mean, I never put it in the schedule, but
yeah, I did. How
do you think?
I think because it's going to be short stories, you're not going to get that sort of typical Marvel burnout. And it's from what I know, I don't think it's going to be canon. So it's not going to be like imperative that you watch it. I mean, in Thor: Love and Thunder, Groot's like sort of teenage age already. So I Am Groot and him being a baby is going to be one of those like it's going to be interesting. I saw the trailer. Oh, it looks really good. It looks really fun. I just feel bad for the VFX team, but that's a separate discussion. But yeah, it looks really good.
We'll get to the. There's been a lot of great VFX memes today. I'm actually really excited to like people like gathering support against the corporate machine for once. But yeah, I'm great. I mean, Vin Diesel's back. Not that I mean, he probably gets paid a lot to say the same 3 words. But it's I'm gonna probably say I might wait till it's done, and if there's like a lunch break or something where I've got a few minutes to kill, like jump in. But I think some people need to realize like Marvel's at a point now where not just that it's humongous, but as you said, if it's not, maybe not even canon, maybe not essential viewing, there's gonna be kids out there that are gonna love this show. They'll be watching it every week. It'll be massive in its own right. And provides again looks like a fun one-time watch precisely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's so hard to go in on shows like that when they're primarily made for kids. But if we're going to get into one of the more meatier ones, this is really intriguing. We had the announcement. So Spider-Man Freshman Year was announced on Disney Plus Day. I think it was earlier this year or the end of last year. We went to a video on this channel, but there was so little news announced that I actually pulled the plug and cancelled it out of pure rage, which was just, it was an absolute train wreck on Disney's behalf. But the one big announcement was all the animated stuff, and Spider-Man Freshman Year is one of them. It was going to be billed as the animated series where we see the MCU's Peter Parker go through school getting his powers, etc., etc. And now we've had a little bit more details for Spider-Man Freshman Year, and it isn't that. This is quite clearly set in another multiverse. So we know it's going to now air in 2024, which is quite a while away. Maybe they announced it too soon. I don't know. There's a second season announced, which will be called Spider-Man Sophomore Year.
Yeah.
I don't know how the American schools do it, but obviously it's following their trajectory. And they announced a lot of the characters that are going to be in this. So we know that Daredevil's going to be in it, of course, voiced by the same actor. Oh my God, how on earth have I forgotten his name? Charlie Cox is going to be voicing him. We now know that Norman Osborn's going to be in it. Harry Osborn's going to be in it. Loads of villains, well-known big Spider-Man villains are going to be in this series. And there was a lot of confused people on the timelines. A lot of people who were sort of following this, like, hold on, like, so this clearly can't be set in the MCU because Norman Osborn's literally starts talking in No Way Home about like going around looking for his son and they don't exist and he doesn't exist, etc., etc. And I know it's a bit of a stretch for me to not moan, but how do you feel with those things? I'm kind of intrigued for the series. The other thing is that we know that Tom Holland's not voicing him, but to me, it kind of detracts. It sort of detracts away from it being tied into the MCU. But it's its own thing. Like, I'm more than happy for its own Spider-Man show. I don't mind that. My favorite Spider-Man show is the 90s one, which is a classic, and we hope it's going to be in Spider-Verse Part 2. But it feels weird now seeing this as a Marvel Studios project when it very much actually feels like a Sony Studios thing.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It's like, if it's going to be its own thing, then fine. Because I know that, like, one of the sort of things is the multiverse saga and stuff like that. So if they're gonna try and sort of go down that route and have this Spider-Man from the show sort of integrate into the wider MCU, I think that might be a bit of a mistake. Keep it as its own thing. Like if you want to tie into something Spider-Man based, tie it into the Spider-Verse. Don't try and tie it into the MCU, purely because it's animation and you can get away with a lot more on animation rather than like sort of real life MCU sort of stuff. So tie into the animated stuff if you want to, if that's something that you want to do. But I'd rather just keep it as its own thing, like the Spider-Man animated show, because that was great in its own right. Like that's a big part of the childhood. Keep it as that, and I've never wanted to see that integrated because I don't need it to be integrated.
Yeah. And I think a Spider-Man series is just going to be a hit in its own regard. Like a Spider-Man set at school, finding out his powers, that's a sell. Again, people will watch it. And Bavaria, I think they change it. I'm just going to assume AU is Alternate Universe, my friend, because they needed more creative possibilities. I'm probably with you on that as well. It sounds like it could be that. It sounds like its own new Spider-Man universe. And it's more like What If, at least I hope so. Well, speaking of What If, we get to talk. So there were some fiery rumors doing the rounds recently that What If was going to debut in August this year. Season 2, sorry, not obviously the series debut. And we've now had confirmation that it's going to be in early 2023, not August, which always goes to show is that rumors aren't real, and we'll bring that up again for the DC panel, which is going to be really funny. And of course, not just announcing a season 2 sort of estimate air date, we now have it. Season 3 has formally been announced and is in production with that, which I'm absolutely fine with. Now, they spoke about a lot of returning characters. They spoke again about multiverses, but the one really interesting big bit of news is that they confirmed the season 2 is going to have a story with Hela. Now, if they can bring back Kate Blanchett, they've done a very good job. I couldn't see that, but if they do, fair play, unless it's going to be Melissa McCarthy from Thor 4, which would also be kind of funny. But how do we feel with What If? Because to me, season 1 was fine. Like, I'm in this board, kind of what we spoke about of I'm a Groot. What If was on like the MCU schedule, right? Do you remember it was on the board at San Diego 2019? Yeah. And it was in the calendar. And if you actually, we'll bring up the photos later for phases 4 to 6. And they've sort of dropped What If out from being in that calendar. And I'm not saying it's not canon, but I'm very okay with What If being this separate entity. Like, yes, there are multiverses. Multiverses can exist. We've obviously seen Captain Carter literally in Multiverse of Madness, which is a different version to this they confirmed. And they said their Captain Carter wouldn't go like that to Wanda. And I just sort of sat there like, well, she absolutely would. And I don't know. I'm in the same line. I don't mind What If. It's a very cool concept, and I don't mind more stories because I like the ideas. I wasn't that big on season 1, but I think that it's because ultimately a lot of the stories had the same essence. Whereas the one I really enjoyed was the zombie one, which we kind of get to speak about in a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed What If as its own thing. I like that it was its own sort of self-contained episodes until the last one or two, when it plays on Ultron, getting the Infinity Stones and all that sort of good stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. More so because it's short. It's like 20-minute, half an hour episodes for some of them, and it's its own self-contained thing. Because again, you won't get that Marvel burnout that everybody keeps talking about because you won't need to watch it. Like when What If came out, I was watching them when they not when they came out, but when I had time. So if there was nothing else on TV to watch, I'd stick that on. The zombie one was really interesting to me. I think they have so much stuff that they can pull from the comics because there's like, especially with like having Deadpool and the mutants now. I mean, there's a comic book for Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, so you could do that, and then you could do stuff like that. Like you could pull those sort of fringe comic book storylines and adapt those for What If, and that works perfectly fine. Because otherwise, they won't get a MCU or sort of they'll just stay in comic book form, and people might want to see those in like animated form. So I'm really looking forward to it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's quite wasn't it? And I feel that Marvel Zombies. I feel was a comic at one point. I could be wrong. Someone can correct me in the comments, but it's again as we said. If you can't do the storyline for it or to it, and if you've got some animators that want to give it a go, maybe you've got some cast that be like, hey, like again, what if is the question? What if this happened? And I know that since this show, you see a lot of Star Wars fans saying if there was Star Wars' version of What If, I've been one of those. What Star Wars things would you love to see? And it is interesting because I think when you're this big as Marvel, you can get away with literally having a show, which is just question marks. And when you've got Jeffrey Wright as the Watcher, it just brings a little bit of gravitas to it. That it's not like a Saturday morning cartoon for kids. It can function as one, but you got to the finale and it brought them all together. And I know some people didn't like that. Some people did like it. I didn't really mind. I just really love seeing like Ultron with the Infinity War on it because that was just an incredible visual and the whole like Ultron stuff. But if we move on from something What If, kind of similar, Marvel Zombies, of course, has been announced as being its own show, which is going to be, I'm guessing, just following from the What If series, which is really cool because I think that was the best episode. I think a lot of people would say the same one too. And we've just got a little bit more news that we've got some casting announcements for which characters and heroes going to be in it. Nothing major in that regard, people you'd expect, but what I've wanted to sort of note and bring up is some of the people were Shang-Chi and Yelena. And I just thought like it kind of had this like moment of reflection, like it's so new. It's so new still, like Shang-Chi and Black Widow. I say new, it's been over a year still. It's cool to see them getting brought up in these projects. That they get, whether they voice them, I guess, is the other question. But they're going to have this impact where they're being brought into the animated stuff. And I just think it's really cool for their characters. And I'll probably bring up Shang-Chi in a bit because I know that D23 is going to be in September. But is that a show you'll be watching, or is it the same with What If? Like as and when you can see it, you'll probably check it out.
It depends. It will definitely be one that I watch regardless. Yeah, I'd agree that the zombie What If episode was one of the stronger ones. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I think the Doctor Strange one was my favorite. But Zombies was one of the ones that was more interesting, and it was one of the stronger ones. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what they do with it, and sort of like, yeah, I think it's a good thing because Shang-Chi and Yelena weren't established characters when What If came out, I don't think. So it's nice that they're adding those, and if they get the voice actors as the actual actors, then fair play to them. Maybe I'm more intrigued than anything with that one.
Yeah, we've got Bavaria saying sorry that the Doctor Strange was the best episode. Yes, that was pretty sick. To be fair, that is, and I know it's implied but not confirmed that was the Doctor Strange at the end of Multiverse of Madness. I don't think it was ever confirmed in the end.
Yeah, I don't think it was confirmed. Again, it was a prevailing theory when the trailers were coming out. Before it came out, it was like, oh, that's the Doctor Strange from What If, and then it did look very similar because I think I brought it up in our group chat that when they went to that world, the sort of buildings looked very similar to how Doctor Strange's universe and buildings and landscape looked in the What If episode. But if it's confirmed, it's confirmed. If not, then people can have their own like headcanon on that.
Yeah. And rounding out the animated stuff, we've got to talk something which I think I'm definitely sure, I can't remember if it's you or Sim, sorry. X-Men 97. One of the most anticipated announcements of the Disney Plus Day last year, bringing back the X-Men, the animated series. Season 1, we now know is going to air fall 2023. They were showing photos of the characters. So they all look the same. People's worries were quashed when the photos came out. And they were showing like a pre-rendered sequence. If anyone aren't familiar with pre-rendered sequences, it looks nothing like what they're going to like. It's almost like models where people talk over them. So if you ever see pre-rendered sequences, a lot of Clone Wars ones out there of stuff that was never used. So don't worry if you've only seen them. But they announced that season 2 is also going to be a thing, which kind of leads me on to a question to you. I'm pretty sure you have watched the animated series, right?
Oh yeah, big part of my childhood.
So I never saw it, and it's had this incredible. And I still haven't seen it, so I not just never saw it. So I've always wanted to see it. And when Disney Plus launched here, I had like 3 shows on my watch list. I had Even Stevens, I had 90s X-Men and 90s Spider-Man. And I ended up picking Even Stevens to watch first and then Spider-Man. And I just never got around to X-Men. Obviously, when they announced it, I'm just going to jump on. that's something we'll be covering next season. Not next season, next year on the channel.
Yeah.
Not just the new series. We'll be going back to doing the old X-Men show, which I've been really looking forward to. Obviously, Patrick Stewart popping in Multiverse of Madness, getting the original X-Men theme. Well, the animated series theme in Miss Marvel last week. I think there's a big future in hand for the 90s X-Men. And I'm just going to jump on. This isn't even a theory. This is just like a ridiculous question. Could you imagine them being the X-Men we'll have in the MCU? I don't think it will be, but...
I don't think it will be, but it'd be interesting to see that happen. But yeah, I mean, as I said, the X-Men animated series was a big part of my childhood. That along with Spider-Man, it'd be one of those I'd watch. Like, I wouldn't watch it religiously, but it'd be one of those like if it's on, I'm going to watch it. And yeah, it's interesting that you said that it's on your watch list because it's actually on my Disney Plus watch list as well. I need to get around to watching it again, but I think with the way that they're using sort of like Charles Xavier having his original chair in Multiverse of Madness and having the 97 theme tune in the ending of Mr. Marvel, I think they're playing a lot on the nostalgia, similar to how they did with Spider-Man. They're playing a lot on the nostalgia, which I don't mind. I mean, if people have, I mean, you got to use it if you can. But one of those is like, I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. And yeah, I just couldn't wait for it, to be honest now.
No, that's fair. And I wonder if, obviously, we've got D23 in September, we might get something more there, or probably San Diego next year, or D23 if they're doing one next year, if they are actually. Because again, fall 2020, that's quite a while away. And I think people realize animated shows take a lot of time to produce. They're normally in production for way before they're ever announced. So it's going to be interesting following that. And Bavaria Patamada was already 30 when the series started. Well, at least you know it though, and that's what's kind of great about it. It's almost like generational. That what you have now is you'll have Ayman, and you grew up with it as one of your childhood shows. Bavaria, which was a bit older. There'll be people that are introduced to X-Men via this animated series next year, and that's just a simple fact. It's kind of like, I guess, the 90s before the films began and whatnot. So that's going to be one to follow. And the last thing we'll cover on the Friday is John Wick 4, which is like the really weird segue into statement. We had a trailer and poster for John Wick 4. Very random to see it at Comic-Con. I know John Wick's a massive franchise, but like Keanu Reeves popped up and I was like, oh yeah, like I forgot John Wick's coming out next year. But I've just got to say that trailer is fucking sensational. I'm a big fan of Donnie Yen. I've probably said it on the channel before, not just because he was in Rogue One before some sly person tries to comment that. Like Ip Man and so many other action things I've seen him in. When Donnie Yen was cast in John Wick 4, I just sort of just sat there like, they can't get this wrong. Like you're not going to you can't not use Donnie Yen properly. Because I feel like we've had this before where you get these incredible like Asian actors like get their American breakthrough, and it's like oh god, what's his name from the Raid when he was in Star Wars 7 for like 10 seconds, the two of them from the Raid, sorry, not one of them, you know the two I mean, don't you, the two main characters, and they were part of Kanja Club, and
I'm blanking on the names.
It was just like, it was so disappointing. I didn't like theorize like, oh, I want lightsaber duels, but it was such a waste that not just them being stars, but their American like Hollywood thing was this ridiculous moment. And in this trailer, we have Donnie Yen fighting Keanu Reeves, both with guns and katanas. Like, if that isn't already one of the greatest things, I mean, we've already got the classic, like the no pull punches on the wooden balls.
Yeah.
But this teaser is probably one of the best teasers I've seen in a while for an action film. And again, it's got Donnie Yen chopping up bullets at point blank range, and I'm so hyped for that film.
Yeah, same. I was disappointed when it got pushed back, but I mean, it looks like they've used the time really well. So I can't wait. And Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves. Like, he's never. Yeah. I don't think he's ever going to do a bad film. I mean, the fact that, like, I mean, interesting things come out about him. Like, he does his own sort of like, he does jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. Like, the fact that he can use that and implement that in a film is just really good. Yeah, Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves. I think he's only getting better. He's only getting bigger as he gets older now. The Matrix, it wasn't great, but it was a good film. And he was in that. The John Wick series have really propelled him. He didn't even need that, but it's really helped him. But yeah, I can't wait for it.
It sort of made him an A-lister again. Like, he was still Keanu
Mm.
Reeves, but now it's like the public eye were on him, and it's almost like a new generation of
Yeah.
people could discover Keanu Reeves. And I think, obviously I'm a massive F1 fan. He was at Silverstone a few weeks ago, and he's doing a series on F1 about one of the most famous years. And the way it works with F1, for anyone curious, is all these celebrities turn up. 90% of the day of an absolute queue. They're there because they want an Instagram photo or to see cars. And what they do, they'll interview them is try and find out, A, do they want to speak? B, do they actually know what they're on about? And he was chatting for like 3 minutes, which never happened. And he was so great with it. And he's just an absolute legend. Got Martin saying Neo and Morpheus. It doesn't get any better than that. Exactly. Another reunion of the Matrix in that film. I feel there's been some other ones recently where. Did we have another? We had another. I'm pretty sure there's another Matrix reunion at one point in another John Wick film, but that will come to it at some point. But kind of said he's got better, and it's like John Wick's like tailored for him. I think in the panel they spoke that when he came on board, the original concept for John Wick was like a really old. Well, that sounds really horrible because he's about 50 years older, but like a Clint Eastwood, Harrison Ford type, like not sort of 50s, more like 70s. I mean, Clint Eastwood's 90s, but it was very much that logic. And Keanu's loved the idea. Like he obviously spoke to them, and they got it tailored for him. And it's almost like he's grown to the films. Like he probably chooses some of his stunts, and it's been really exciting seeing those franchise. And I think that'll be an absolute killing next year.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for the Friday. We're going to move on to Saturday, which was yesterday, of course, and one of the bigger days. So it opened with the official Warner Brothers panel, which I kind of had this sort of question mark over my head saying, Warner Brothers? Because I'm pretty sure they've got nothing coming out major except DC for their sort of short-term future. And, we've got lots. We've got June 2 started filming last week. We've got Wonka like next December. But I was like, the short front, there's not much for Warner Bros. And Don't Worry Darling had a new trailer, and that's not really the sort of thing to be at Comic-Con. And this is what was kind of amazing. So obviously, we can't watch these panels. Me and you were probably. Do we still have the same mindset when we were younger? DC's got the better comics, but Marvel's always handled their properties better in terms of jump to film.
Yeah. I mean, even a couple of years ago, like the animated shows for not animated shows, animated movies for DC, far and above, way better than Marvel. But yeah, I think the comics for DC, they were a lot more grittier. So probably, it was one of those ones.
No, 100%. And I'm going to kind of just leeway this in before we sort of get going on this. So we can obviously bring up the films they brought up at the panel. And we're also going to bring up some films they didn't choose to bring up in that same panel. And we'll actually go over some of the reasons without trying to get into it too much. But I'm just going to pose a question that DC Fandom obviously took place over last year and the year before. As a virtual online event. I actually really enjoyed it as an event. I thought the first year they did fantastic. Second year I wasn't as keen, but the concept of a DC version of Comic-Con I think was superb. And I know that Kevin Feige has always hinted at the same for Marvel. Oh, I'd love to do an Avengers Con like Star Wars Celebration. But he's been saying that for about 10 years now. And let's be blunt, if Kevin Feige wanted his own convention, he probably could have his own convention. So, just actions speak louder than words, but we'll get to his words later because they spoke quite an amount. But the Warner Bros. Panel, asterisk, actually DC panel, kicked off with Shazam, Fury of the Gods, out this December, which I completely forgot. I forgot it was in existence. I've really enjoyed the first Shazam film. I don't know if we watched it together, but I remember thinking it was going to be rubbish, but it was actually really good. And I think it was like really enjoyable. And actually, it's probably one of DC's better received films, or certainly the DCEU, one of their better films.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be. I mean, I would have hoped there would have been a sequel. I didn't know there was going to be a sequel, so this trailer took me for kind of by surprise. But yeah, it was the first one was really enjoyable, and I think one of the main aspects of it being good was that it didn't really tie into the DCEU. I mean, you had the cameo at the end with headless Henry Cavill. So it had Superman's suit, But apart from that, it wasn't really tied in. But now they've really tied it in because they mention Aquaman and Flash, which is a bold step. But it's a thing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it actually. And to get Helen Mirren on board is big because she's huge. Even at her age, she's huge. So to get her on it, hats off to him.
She's kind of like having fun. Like she's been in the Fast films as Jason
Mm.
Statham's and Luke Evans' mum, which is just jokes. But it's interesting this because I'm the same as you. Like I kept forgetting this was in production. The trailer. I mean, I'm going to be blunt. The trailer didn't do anything for me, but neither did the first film, and I love the first one. So this has me until it comes out. I'll watch it. I've got no reason not to. I said I've really enjoyed that first film, and it's just a bit different. I think certainly at the time of the first Shazam film, DC were in that slog of these are the dark and depressing Snyder films, etc., etc. And Shazam was like a breath of fresh air to the. Whereas now we're kind of in this zone where there's just no DC films coming out to talk about to compare to, and I said the trailer was okay. Again, I'll be watching it. I don't need to be sold that. It's coming out the same week as Avatar, I think, which is very, very dumb. I wouldn't be betting on anything but Avatar that weekend. We've got Martin in the comments as well. I wasn't expecting anything Shazam, but I really enjoyed the first film. I think a lot of people had the same mindset. Like it was good fun. And it was self-aware. And I mean, talk about self-aware. They have a joke about Fast and Furious in this new film, and it's being written by someone that's wrote the Fast and Furious films, which is just a bit on the nose. But aside from that, obviously, what is Shazam also famous for? His villain, his rival, Black Adam. I know you're way more familiar with Black Adam than I am. But we've also known The Rock has been attached to play him for way, like many years before they've even greenlit the film. Like The Rock to me has just always been attached to this character. Was it like the character like he would like openly campaign for when no one was sort of asking for a Black Adam film?
Yeah, I think because I think they announced Black Adam before Shazam came out, which was bold. But yeah, good segue into that. Black Adam's going to come out soon, and yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, The Rock's always been associated with him in my mind now. Anyway, he's like firmly The Rock is Black Adam.
And he's been quite passionate in speaking about that. He did an interview yesterday where he kind of said that no one's being Black Adam, so I can make him my own. I think it's completely fair play because, again, like in the same way that people like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, the problem with The Rock is that Dwayne Johnson is The Rock. Yeah. And it's kind of that like it's not nice for him to be another character, but it's kind of like okay, it's like the A-list status of not being typecast, but because you're famous for your wrestling, which isn't a problem. I'm a massive wrestling fan. It's kind of like, have you seen like how John Cena's kind of trying to break out of the John Cena stereotypes by being this good guy all the time, and obviously being obviously Peacemaker and stuff like that. Whereas The Rock, I think, sort of been in the action typecast. Obviously, you got the memes out of the Jungle movies where he's always wearing like jungle clothes in the jungle and all that sort of stuff, and I think it'll be good for him. And obviously, his dedication, he turned up in full costume. He had smoke come on the stage and they levitated him. I can't unsee the description of it. I don't think you've seen the photo. Obviously, it's now a thumbnail. The top reply was, he looks like a 6-inch, six scale sideshow action figure you'll see on sale at Forbidden Planet, complete with holding platform. And I now can't unsee him actually looking like a toy. The new trailer I thought was a bit rubbish. It was like a minute. It was weird. It was like a teaser. Yeah, but they'd announced that the night before they finished editing the final cut of the film, so it's in the can now. And they showed it to the cast at the evening before, and it kind of surprised me it's coming out in October. Now we've got Martin in the comments who's a big Bond fan, and he'll be saying the same thing as me. The main reason I'm here is for Pierce Brosnan. And I won't lie, I was a bit gutted that only The Rock came to Comic-Con for it. I feel like Black Adam needs a bit more of a push than just having The Rock turn up on stage. I felt like, I know that the director and a couple of other people, but something feels missing for a film in 3 months, that there's not been that much of a push for it. Yeah,
I think it's one of those. I mean, the when I first watched the trailer, I thought it was very similar to sort of the Black Panther trailer, where like the technology wise, they're
Yeah.
using this advanced technology that no one else on Earth has. But yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to the film. I like The Rock. It looks like he's really having fun with the character, and the fact that they got Hawkman and Atom Smasher and Pierce Brosnan as Doctor Fate. I'm really interested to see what they do with Doctor Fate because he was in Smallville, and then he was in Legends of Tomorrow, I think. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how they do Doctor Fate and how much they sort of use him in this, and if he's going to have a bigger part in the whole DCEU.
I mean, I hope so because it's Pierce Brosnan, and it'd be wonderful. Maybe if if they needed James Bond for a month, bring him back. And I think with Black Adam, we can kind of segue into like I guess like the no show of DC. So I really don't want to get into the politics of the court case, but we will very briefly. Obviously, Aquaman didn't have anything, no trailer, no cast, no teaser, no nothing. And the obvious, well, if I'm going to be blunt, again, is there a DC fandom coming at the end of the year they haven't told us about? That could explain some things, but if you want to talk about missed opportunities, it's probably this, and the reason why is obviously because of the court case with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. There is no other reason in the world this wasn't present. And again, I don't want to harp on the court case. Now everyone's sick and fed up of it by now. And to me, it kind of edges criticism at Warner Brothers now that if you're in a position where you don't want to market your film at the one day of the year where every single person is waiting for you to market the film, it's due out in, I think, January, by the way. So it's only 6 months away. You can drop a teaser. It reeks of, obviously, again, yes, we understand the court case happened. And obviously the problem is, and this is the essence of it, again, I'm not going to get into my personal thoughts on it because I could be here for ages, like so many of the people haven't and have done, which I disagree with, doing on YouTube, but you sack Johnny Depp from Fantastic Beasts, you've removed him from the film on the week filming begins, also filming in London where Aquaman did, but then you keep Amber Heard in her role in Aquaman. I don't care that they reduced it down. They kept her in the film. And if the trial is to be believed, her role was reduced because she's a terrible actress, not because of the court case.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not going to get involved, but you will make of that what you will. Did her role get reduced because of controversy, or did her role get reduced because she's a terrible actress? The answer is probably both. But I think it's, if I'm going to be polite, we'll get into Flash after, that film is dead. There is no way they're going to be able to market that film now without addressing it, and they won't address it. And obviously, we've actually found out about spoilers from the film via the court case, which pretty sure you've legally broken NDA. That needs to be broken in court as well.
Yeah.
But how do you feel, again, like without the politics of it? How do you feel about No Aquaman? Because it is an own goal, isn't it? The first one made $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the first one came out, and I was walking out of the theater. I think it was with you, and we were both. Oh, have you not seen it? Oh, I can't remember who I watched it with then, but it was one of those. When I came out of the theater, I was pleasantly surprised. It was a really good film. And then when like the dust sort of settled and it started making all this money, people were saying, "Oh yeah, they've greenlit like number 2, number 3, and then spin-offs like The Abyss and stuff like that." And they're just not mentioned anymore at all.
They cancelled The Abyss, didn't they?
Yeah.
It came out. It was gonna. Is it Black Manta or Black Manta? Sorry, the villain.
Yeah, Black Manta.
It was going to be about him, right? And they've just cancelled it.
The spin-off. I mean, yeah, I think the film is dead. Yeah, drop it when it's ready, and then leave it as is.
And I think as
well, they just fucked it basically.
Yeah, and I think as well, like obviously Warner Brothers has now been bought by Discovery. They've had a full legal merger. There is obviously high-up bosses getting removed from roles at Warner Brothers, new people being brought in. They might not be in a position where they want to announce stuff, which I completely understand. They might be in a position where, hey, we're actually planning stuff out for a change, which I also understand. But yeah, just I mean, not even. I mean, I know that James Gunn's very, very busy on Guardians, but you know that Peacemaker season 2 is in development. There was nothing for that. I understand nothing for that at the moment. But I guess we even talk about the Flash. You've got. There's not going to be another San Diego Comic Con before. Wow, based on the current release date for the Flash, this is the San Diego Comic Con before the Flash. And if you were ever going to wheel Michael Keaton out for an appearance, it would have been yesterday. But there was nothing. The Flash, as you said, it was weird when the Flash popped up in the trailer for Shazam because it's kind of, ooh, Ezra Miller's The Flash. Another film, Dead on Entry. And I could say so much about this. The video of Ezra Miller choking the fan a couple of years ago. This went viral years ago, and like nothing was said. It was really random. And they're like, it's fine. We'll let him do Fantastic Beasts, ironically, like someone else, and we'll still let him do the Flash. And then obviously now, again, I mean, not from a legal standpoint, but there's literal like police, criminal, like he's literally on the run. Ezra Miller's on the run, people. Like he is not, at the Fantastic Beasts press event, obviously, like we're at the press screening, but at the junkets, the interviews, all the people attending were told that they are not allowed. Sorry, their questions had to be submitted in advance, and 10 minutes before their interviews with certain cast members, they were told what they can and can't ask, and obviously that wasn't just to not bring up Ezra Miller. That was around the time the Hawaii stuff happened. You also had obviously the Johnny Depp stuff. You had the J.K. Rowling stuff. So that film was just a mess in its own right. And obviously they didn't. It's rare. They just didn't announce another one at Comic Con either yesterday for it. But yeah, the Ezra Miller Flash stuff is I mean, obviously the main real life stuff is like you hope they're well. Like if they need support, if they need to go to rehab or anything, then 100%. I don't like the idea of it being a wild goose chase on social media. The problem is that it's become a wild goose chase on social media because he literally isn't being seen. There are stories of people being like taken by their families, and it's a whole big mess. And if I'm going to take the real life stuff and bring it into a film perspective, so I don't care about a film coming before like real life things. But if you're looking at it from a business decision from DC Comics, The Flash is the film that was going to reset the DCEU for them to move forward and have a DCEU, which they now can't do. So them themselves are in an even worse predicament. Again, that's not the forefront of the problems. The problems is that finding Ezra Miller and trying to justice take its place, all that sort of stuff. The film stuff comes second to real life instance, but they're in a mess. Sorry, I keep talking.
Yeah, no, definitely they're in a mess. I mean, the fact that he's on the run is just wild. Like if you told me even a couple of years ago when Justice League came out that at this time Ezra Miller is going to be on the run, have all these criminal charges and stuff like that, I would have to slap you because that's just so unbelievably wild. Like
it's like GTA.
Yeah, it's just insane, and I feel bad. I mean, if he needs help, get help. Like there's no shame in getting help. But I mean, I feel bad for us going back to Aquaman as well. The fact that they're not getting any there's loads of people that have worked on that film, and it's gonna obviously affect them as well. I mean, not even the actors, like the VFX artists, stuff like that. Like, it's gonna screw over so many people, and especially like with the Flash and Aquaman, them being sort of like big films, having lots of special effects, having loads of stunts behind them, stuff like that. It's gonna affect so many more people, and it's just a shame that one or two people have to sort of ruin that for however many people that putting hours and hours into their craft to make this thing, to make this a thing, and it's just a shame, really.
Yeah, and we've got Bavari, and it's their fault they're being Warner Brothers. They thought the problems with both actors would smooth over and decided to wait. Now they're fucked. They're losing money. And this is it. And this is where the criticism is, because Warner Brothers played a very, very, very dangerous game. They retaliated off the UK verdict on, of course, the Depp stuff.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't want to get into the trials. I have followed them. The UK verdict, you could just read into yourself. It was a judge, not a jury. The judge's son worked for Talk Radio, who in turn is owned by The Sun, which is the paper he was suing, which is number one reason why that shouldn't have gone ahead or should have had a retrial. And number two is the baseless reality of the United Kingdom. They were never going to let an American successfully sue a British newspaper in Britain. I'm just saying that 100% as it would be here. Couldn't care less in regards to the evidence. That's like the black and white. That just doesn't happen in the UK. That's just the sum of this country. And we've got Derpy Kaming saying, I'm afraid to admit it as a DC fan, but Warner Brothers buried and pissed on by mouth with their announcements. Yeah. I guess because there was no announcements. And what would even get to, I mentioned no Aquaman, no Flash, nothing on the Batman 2. Yet Paul Dano was there promoting the comic book series he's doing on the Riddler, which he came up with across filming. And again, there's just missed opportunities, and maybe we're overlooking it. Maybe Warner Brothers saying, "Hey, DC fandom is the future of us at conventions now. We're not bothered about San Diego." In the same way that Star Wars doesn't do San Diego, Star Wars is Celebration and D23. Martin's got to go. Good night, Martin. Take care. We'll speak to you soon. Do check out tomorrow because we're going to get to the fun Marvel stuff shortly. And it's a tricky one, but I think DC fandom will come back, but Warner Brothers has an own goal of kind here. And again, I don't even like the competition on Marvel v DC. I think that's it's like PlayStation versus Xbox of like 10 years ago. That I think the mature adult opinion should just be to say you can enjoy both. You can dislike both. You can like one and not the other. But it's just the whole childish attributes of it, like a football game or something. It's not for comics. And in turn, all the people that work on these will say the same thing, like they enjoy both sides of it. But if we want to move on from DC, because we've still got Marvel still, we're going to try and rapid through some of these. We can talk House of Dragon. So House of Dragon starts soon. I guess that is Warner Brothers to a degree. Obviously, Warner Brothers own HBO Max, and obviously this was a HBO series now on HBO Max. And we got a brand new trailer. We had George R. R. Martin in attendance with some of the cast for the series, and I think it's airing at the end of August. Obviously, you're a big Game of Thrones fan as well. We all spent many years watching it. How do you feel of the trailer? Where do you stand on it? Because to me, if I'm being blunt, it's not doing much for me. But I will be watching it. There's a lot of shows coming out, if I'm going to say that.
Yeah, I'm interested. I think there is a lot of fantasy sort of stuff coming out around about the same time, especially with Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. It's hard because I was a big Game of Thrones fan, and then the final season came out, and it was a dumpster fire. There's no other way to sort of explain it. It was so bad that I can't go back and watch Game of Thrones now, because I know that the final season will be there, and I honestly can't put myself through it. This one, I'm more interested and intrigued than anything. I think the trailer looks good, but then trailers can be misleading as well. Like when you mentioned that the Flash trailer didn't do much. The Shazam trailer didn't do much for you, and you really enjoyed that. Hopefully, it'll be
the same.
It won't be the opposite, where the trailer looks really good and then the TV show is bad. I'm really interested. I mean, I was interested when they would mention like the Targaryens in the show. So hopefully they do those characters justice. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dragons in that trailer as well. And the main thing that I would say about the dragons is each dragon's got their own like sort of identity and look, which is really good. It depends on if they can properly pull that through.
Oh, sorry, my internet cut
Yeah.
there. Are you okay?
Yep. Yeah. I thought I lost you there.
No, sorry, I missed the end of that. But what you were speaking with the trailer stuff, it's kind of, you mentioned a lot of dragons. So they've announced so there was a panel that came with it. Obviously, the whole cast there, George R. R. Martin was there. They said there's going to be 17 dragons in the series. And they actually spoke that they're using the volume tech. Of course, Mandalorian is obviously made that popular now, and that's mainly for when the actors are on the dragons, which I guess is cool because this is nothing to do with Game of Thrones' fault. It always looked weird when Daenerys was on the dragon, and that was only because the visuals of a human riding a dragon is almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So hopefully the volume has helped push that in the right direction and whatnot. But aside from that, I'm kind of intrigued because the stuff I love about Game of Thrones is the politics of it. But I didn't really care for the fancy elements. I know a lot of people really enjoy that side of it, but to me, I just enjoyed the politics of it all, the backstabbing, all of that sort of thing. And that's what I'm more excited for in this. Is it's like almost like a family dispute, and we're going to find out like what way it goes. Now, I haven't read the Game of Thrones books. I'm familiar with a lot of the lore from what I've read online over the years. I had friends that were really into it. They do like books on the Targaryen like dynasty and everything that George R. R. Martin's done. So I'm kind of curious. Obviously, ultimately, we know where it's going to go. And I'm not obviously going to say where it's going for those that might not know some of the character fates and stuff. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't think a lot of people that will watch this will know. But my big question, and it's not to sound rude, how many people are going to be watching this? And that's my only question, because Game of Thrones is massive. But is it? I'm just not seeing people speaking about the show, and I don't think it's the show's fault. I think it's what you said earlier. The ending of Game of Thrones. Now, there are people that do enjoy the ending of Game of Thrones. I know a lot of people that do like the ending of Game of Thrones. But for the people that followed it maybe every year, or for a lot of casual people that didn't enjoy it, I don't think they'll be sold on going back to Westeros now. That's not me saying it is like that. It's not black and white. I'm not one of those like nutcase YouTubers, but I think there will be people that aren't invested. And for me personally, I'm either gonna. I haven't decided yet. I'm just gonna wait. If this show, I don't know how many episodes it's gonna be. I don't know if it's planned for multi seasons or if it's one season or maybe 3 maximum or something like that. But I'm quite cautious at the moment, and I'm very aware it's airing again at the same time as Lord of the Rings and Cassian. And I know that my attention is going to be on those. So, like some of the more the recent Marvel shows, do I wait until they're finished and then watch it all together? I don't know. How do you feel with that?
I think I'll watch it every week that it comes out. But it does depend on the quality. I think because Game of Thrones left a sour taste in my mouth. What I'll do is I'll give the first episode or the first 2 episodes a good chance, and if it's one of those that I feel like it's a slog to get through, then I'll sort of let them build up. If it's great, happy days, I'll watch it every week, but I will give it a chance. I will go in with an open mind and try and not think about the absolute mess that the final season of Game of Thrones was. I think, because it's still George R. R. Martin, but as far as I'm aware, Dan and Dave aren't part of that. And I think the fact that, because I think they wanted Star Wars, which is why season 8 was it season 8 was so rushed. Because they wanted to get through it and then get on Star Wars, and it backfired on them so insanely well that it's just wild. So yeah, we'll give it a chance. It's different writers, so George R. R. Martin being more hands-on, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he actually spoke about it, saying he doesn't want to become Stan Lee. It's like, where's he going with this? Basically, he just doesn't want to be a happy guy having cameos. Because someone asked him, "Are you going to have a cameo in this series?" And I think he actually said that he had a cameo in the pilot, but then he just said that he then made a joke saying that, I shouldn't really be having cameos when I have a book I'm meant to finish. Obviously, we all know what book that is, but it's very interesting. Again, like some of the mindset people approaching this, and again, if George R. R. Martin is involved, because it seems like Warner Brothers banked on Dan and Dave before. Obviously, I think they're off. I don't know. It might be Netflix, the streaming service. They're now tied in moving forward. and now they're backing the creator, which I think is the correct choice. And the one thing I say, George R. R. Martin, although he hasn't made this book, he's finished his book, he's clearly still like invested in Westeros itself. And there was like 8 different spin-offs they were talking about at some point, and all that. So it'll be interesting to see what does happen with this. And it'll be interesting, again, to see what coverage it gets. Obviously can't cover views when it's streaming, but I'm very intrigued for the reception. I think there'll be more people that watch it. I've probably been a bit not harsh on it. I think I've underestimated. I think, as you said, a lot of people will probably just give it an episode to begin with, or they'll wait until people start saying, listen, do watch this. But like many people, it's hard to escape the ending of Game of Thrones, and I think it doesn't matter how invested. This could have the greatest first season in history. They say we're going to end it for season 2. Everyone's going to go, oh no, are they going to end it? So it raises question marks, but I guess the right kind of question marks. So that's going to round out for Game of Thrones because I'm very cautious at the time. Now there was a Star Trek panel, and I've never ever watched Star Trek outside the J.J. Abrams films. I've got literally nothing to say, but there's a lot of excited people on my Twitter. They're crossing over the current animated series with the current live action one. So you're going to have this blend of live action animated, a little bit like Roger Rabbit, which people were going through the roof for. Me, I don't know how to feel about that. I wouldn't want to see like animated Ahsoka rock up in the Mandalorian anytime soon. So I'm not going to say much on that. Picard, the Patrick Stewart series, is going to end with his 3rd season, but he wants a film. Again, I've not got nothing to add. But more interesting, Paramount Plus in the US now has all the original Star Trek series streaming for people that want to watch them. Are you big on Star Trek? I know we've never spoken about it.
Yeah, I'm not. I have an interest, like a vague interest, like in the sort of the films, the original films. My dad's a big Trek fan. He was telling me that Picard season 3 is going to be the last one, but they filmed season 2 and 3 together, back to back.
Oh.
So that's interesting to know. But yeah, my dad's watching. They're doing one as a sort of prequel series. I can't remember.
Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, so he's really enjoying. I think he's watching little bits of all the stuff that's coming out at the moment. But they're doing one about a prequel about a character that, in the original Star Trek show, he's sort of messed up. He's just, I think he's disabled. And they're sort of going back to that and trying to explain his origins and stuff like that. I mean, if there's any Trek fans in the comments, then feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's not something that's always interested me. Little bits have, but it's never been one of those that I need to watch and I'm not going to watch.
No, same with you. And I don't have Paramount Plus. I'm not going to have Paramount Plus because there's just too many streaming services. But the one thing that if I would go and watch Trek, I'd want to watch the original films or the original series. And what I can't stand is to make it a Comic-Con announcement that, oh my God, we're streaming Star Trek. Well, Paramount, you literally own the rights to Star Trek. It shouldn't be a Comic-Con thing to say you're doing it now. It should be on there from day one. And that's what annoys me with streaming services when they hide their own content from people when they know they can do it. And also, last bit before the big one, The Sandman. Now, they've released a trailer. I haven't seen the trailer because I know it's coming out Friday the 5th of August. And Netflix have sent me the screeners. I think I'm allowed to say that. I have not watched any of them, so therefore I have no opinion to formulate. I can just say I have screeners on my account. And the review embargo is after the release, which is not always a good sign. That being said, again, I can't preemptive an opinion. Did you watch the trailer? Because I know
I did. I've had my eye on Sandman for a while. Whenever I go, I'll go on Netflix every now and then, and it comes up with the what's coming soon. Sandman's been on there for a while, and it's really interested me. I know that there's been adaptations before, and they've never got it right. I think that's because of the source material. It's so hard to do. But the fact that Neil Gaiman has a hand in this one. I think he did an interview with Vanity Fair. I'm still to watch that, but I'm really interested. I hope it goes really well. I enjoy the trailers. Trailers are really interesting to me.
Excellent. Something I will be seeing, because again, I've heard of it via reputation. Someone I actually used to work with, this is like 10 years ago, and I just started working. It was around the time that we were going to the comics uploads. He was like a massive Neil Gaiman fan, and it's really interesting seeing. I think his other series is on Amazon at the moment. It's got David Tennant and Michael, one of the Sheens, the Welsh one.
Yeah.
Something Gods. Good Omens. Good Omens, is it?
Yeah, Good Omens. Yeah.
Um,
Good Omens.
And it's interesting seeing his stuff jump. And he said that his stuff just doesn't work in film. It's got to be done on a streaming service. So I do respect that Netflix pumping the money in. And I will be curious to see how it comes out. And I'll be curious to see how it's recognized amongst fans. Because it said it's very different, very weird. But aside from the Sandman, it's a funny thing of the Sandman, because I always think of either Adam Sandler or literally the villain from Spider-Man. We're at the big one. I mean, we've got going an hour and 25. We're going to talk Marvel now. We're going to talk. Yes, I say yesterday. Technically, it was today. It was at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, 2 a.m. Yeah,
this morning, and I was awake. I was struggling to stay, but I stayed awake. I'll get to our video when we get to talk about Ant-Man. But what we're going to do, people, because this is massive. This is the main thing. We're going to go through it in the order they spoke about it at the event. So we'll end it talking Black Panther, but we'll begin with how it began. And they confirmed that Phase 4, which is what we're currently on, is going to end this November with Wakanda Forever. So we have nabbed a picture here off Reddit. It doesn't actually have Wakanda Forever on. No, ignore me. This is the original.
That's the original.
This is the 3 years ago one, yeah. But all of this technically still is Phase 4, so I'm just going to leave it up here. It's very interesting. I mean, I'm just going to kind of jump to actually. Shouldn't really look at it because the release it's wrong, but it's going to annoy me. Phase 4, and I mean, we know where it's going to go, so we're going to get to that in a bit, because we now know there is a plan. Marvel has told us their plan. A lot that was the big criticism of the shows. Where is it heading towards? What's the plan? What are they doing? Why don't we know what's going on? And now we kind of know, but I just want to ask you, Phase 4 ending with Wakanda Forever. Obviously, the film's not out. How do you feel on Phase 4? Phase 4. It feels very sudden.
Yeah, I think we've come to expect that every phase ends with a Avengers film, and to end Phase 4, I understand the reasoning. We'll probably talk about that later, but I understand the reasoning. But it is a bit weird. I mean, we've had I think, is it three or four films by the end of Phase 4, and we've had 4 TV shows.
I was going to have a look at my my Blu-ray shelf. Hold on. Phase 4, we've had 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've had 5. No, 6. Sorry, I've got them all wrong already. Ignore me. Because I don't own the Eternals. We had 4 films last year.
Yeah.
We had Black Widow,
No Way
Eternals,
Home,
Shang-Chi, and No Way Home.
Yeah.
This year we've had Doctor Strange, Thor, and we're having Wakanda Forever. So we're just going to have 3 this year. So 7 films.
Yeah.
And a hell of a lot of TV shows. And it's really interesting because I was kind of like, okay, like, not they're brushing Phase 4 under a rug, but if someone would say Phase 4's directionless, I want to say it's harsh at the moment. It's harsh until it's harsh now we've seen the plan from last night.
Yeah.
But there are essences of things formulating. Not as obvious as Phase 1. Or maybe even, I mean, Phase 2 was really pretty slow. This is actually a really good point. This comes in the spot, so sorry if it doesn't make sense, but Phase 4 is almost like a hangover from Endgame. Like, so much of this phase has been what happened after the events of Endgame. How has that impacted us? The virus, but it was renamed to Phase COVID. All the movies and series. Honestly, I'm with you on this. It is this too. Dave was a late night on Twitter, and this is about Sandman. Sorry, great series in my opinion, like Strange Stories. Phase 4 is an interesting one because, as you said, it's a bit all over the place. And I think we'll get to the trailer later, but potentially Black Panther is going to be the film to end the phase on, which is just a testament of what we'll get to speak about in a bit. But I guess if you want to, I mean, you were on our Miss Marvel review. Like, is it scattered to you? Like, I think the COVID thing is probably the best description, if I'm being honest.
The COVID thing has definitely affected it. Because I had to rejig stuff, push stuff back. I think I said it in the Miss Marvel review. Like, I liken it to that, where they use Miss Marvel as a setup to the Marvels film. I think that's what they've done with Phase 4. They've planted a lot of seeds in different areas, and then you're gonna get the payoff in Phase 5 and Phase 6.
Yeah.
It's weird. It is very scattered. I think because they didn't have a direction, it still played quite well, but it's more of a setup, I think, in my opinion anyway. You're setting up all these things, you're gonna get the payoff in Phase 5 and Phase 6.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. It might be a phase in retrospect that as time goes by, I don't want to say it gets better, but I think individually it's not bad. Like the stuff that's come out individually is not bad, but as a group's togetherness, there's not a cohesive story again at present, which I think is a lot of people's concerns. And obviously, I'd say this is also the phase where Disney Plus is now a thing. We need to start getting the Disney Plus shows out, which is also underestimated how important that is. But if we want to talk about something from Phase 4 that was announced last night, one of the final Phase 4 things, we had a new trailer for She-Hulk alongside a poster. She-Hulk's a fascinating one because that first trailer came out and sort of the internet collectively laughed at the terrible CGI. Now, straight away, I'm going to say the CGI looked a lot better than the trailer yesterday. I say a lot better. It looked normal, which is a great sign. It looked normal. Yeah. And I would say She-Hulk looks fine. It's again with these shows that I'm going to wait until it's done, unless we obviously get early access. Sometimes we're very fortunate to get that access, but I'm more than happy to wait. And we know it's going to be 9 episodes, and it's going to be 30-minute episodes done as a comedy. How did you feel with the trailer and now knowing that information? Like, because to me, it instantly makes it different from this. It's a comedy. I don't need to go in with different expectations to how other films are.
Yeah, I think the CGI does look a lot better. I heard that the Hulk is only going to be in episode 1 and episode 8, if I'm not mistaken. But the trailer looks really good. I can't complain. Yeah, if it's comedy and it's half an hour, then it'll probably be ones that I don't sort of like watch religiously, the same as I did like Miss Marvel and stuff like that. It'll be one of those that I watch when I get a chance. But yeah, it looks interesting. It's nice to see Abomination back as well and being played by the original actor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm intrigued. I think this trailer gave a lot more about what it's going to be about as well, with She-Hulk defending, or sort of because there's so many sort of heroes and supervillains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. There's obviously that legal team that needs to be done. I think I've seen that joke before about like there's a tweet going around at the moment. It's like if rent in Gotham City was
$300 a month, would you go?
Yeah, it's like it's one of those. It's one of those. It's like they're branching out and making it really interesting. So yeah, I'm intrigued. It'll probably be ones that I'll watch when I get a chance.
Yeah, and Dave can't wait for She-Hulk. And I wait for the CGI critics to send my TV. Maybe it's me, but the CGI looks worse on Twitter, on YouTube. Yeah, I'm with this. The compression on Twitter for videos is abysmal. Anytime a trailer pops up on Twitter, I do go onto YouTube and I do try and watch it on there. And I'm also a bit of a snob. I mean, I like my setups. I've got, it's not an arrogant thing. It's something, I'm happy to push my money into. I value my setup to watch stuff on at home. And the one of my biggest gripes of conversations online is, and this actually happened on this channel before, when, terrible CGI. Well, I think it looks really good. What are you watching on? I've got a 4K TV. I've got a 480p version online.
Oh, then, okay. Yeah.
Of course it's not going to look good on a 480p potato camera. That's like standard definition pre-upscaling. So, very, very good point. And this is where I kind of felt like when that first trailer came out, they should have just teased her being green, because if you look at the productions of TV shows, or sorry, not TV shows, films, when it's the earliest stages, they will avoid showing anything that isn't fully done in camera. That
Mm.
I mean, the Oppenheimer trailers come out for anyone curious. I'm bloody envious you've seen it at the cinema. I've had to make do with copies of it on my phone. You know, that's a film about the atomic bomb. Obviously, they're not going to show it in the trailer. So what do? Okay, let's just have characters walking around set in a room. It's a teaser because they've only just wrapped filming, and it really frustrates me when these films. Sorry, this series in particular, more than any other Marvel one. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, has had bashed before because I think their marketing teams made a grave error in releasing footage that shouldn't have been released. And then there's a whole other conversation on the VFX houses, the treatment of VFX artists, whether it's corporate clients demanding too much, whether it's internal managers looking into things too much and trying to appease people. It's a real horrible area from one of the most pivotal moments in the industry at the moment. And if staff are being overworked and underpaid to go with it, when these films are like grossing like $28 billion like as a franchise, and the pay's not going to equate to that. There's a lot of legal stuff, so I can't really comment on that because I've said it work in CJ House. But all I say is join a union if you can, if you are watching. For any visual effects artists, that stuff is very big, especially in productive industries such as that. So, I'm with you on that. But with She-Hulk, I mean, we've got a lot to go through. Do you want to say any more on She-Hulk, or should we just jump to the big stuff?
I'm happy to jump to the big stuff.
Right. Okay, phase 5, let's go. Again, photos nabbed off Reddit, so apologies, I don't have the sources. One of the big announcements of yesterday is that we now know that this is phase 5 as a whole. I'm just going to go through them individually, and then what we'll do, if we want to grab any ones you're curious to speak about, any major ones, we can do so. So we've got, if we do the films first, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, obviously coming February, Guardians Volume 3 coming in May. Then we've got the Marvels next July, Blade next November, and then Captain America New World Order May the 3rd, 2024. And rounding out Phase 5, the Thunderbolts, July 2024. And obviously, TV series, we've got Secret Invasion, Echo, Loki Season 2, Ironheart, and Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Now, if you wanted me to bring it back up, please do. How do you feel with that as a phase spanning a year and a half?
I think that's okay. There's a lot to pack in, but now that they have Disney Plus, they can really use that. But yeah, it's going to be a busy year and a bit. I think the most interesting one to me is Blade, but that's because I have an interest in the original trilogy as well, and I'm a big fan of Marshall Ali, who will be playing Blade. So it's one of those I'm really interested in to see where they go with that, because obviously they can't make it like the Wesley Snipes one because that's going to be way too wild. But depending on what they do, I'd be really interested to see what they do with that. And Thunderbolts, they've been building up the Thunderbolts. And when it was announced that was a thing, I'm really curious about that. It'll be interesting for the Thunderbolts as well. Yeah,
Thunderbolts is fascinating. So I never knew much about them, and then I've seen a lot. I think they registered. Thunderbolts was leaked about maybe a month ago. It was in production, and obviously now to end a phase on the Thunderbolts is very interesting. To have Captain America, then the Thunderbolts. And I've just got to say, Captain America, two things. Number one, calling it New World Order. I know you're not big on wrestling, but the NWO from WCW. Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and all of those. I just can't show this image of Captain America just hanging out with them now in black shirts doing the Bullet Club stuff and everything. I know it's not Bullet Club, some restaurant's going to cry. But this brings us on to the other thing, part 2 of Captain America. I hate having to say this, but Anthony Mackie is Captain America. He is playing the character. He is going to be in the film. And that is all you need to know, as tweeted by Chris Evans as well. Sorry, Sam Wilson, not just Anthony Mackie. So, yeah, to any people upset by that, just fuck off. And you've got it from me here. So, because I'm not gonna, I can't wait for that. I love Falcon and Winter Soldier. This series is interesting because everything with Anthony, all the Sam Wilson stuff, I thought was great. And we're hearing retrospect to you later. and the stuff that let it down was the villains, which we know in real life is down to COVID. You know, there was a subplot about vaccines and chemical warfare, and obviously that series coming out in like the April of last year when you couldn't have done a vaccine subplot. It's kind of sad, but just talking phase. I mean, do you want to say anything on Sam Rogers? Sorry, not Sam Rogers. Anthony Mackie. Sorry, Falcon.
No, just repeat what you said. Basically, Sam Wilson as a character is Captain America. If you don't like it, then you don't have to watch it. It's up to you. But yeah, he is Captain America now. Even Chris Evans, who is the original Captain America, said he is Captain America. Well, you can just dispute that fact with Chris Evans as well. Like, it's up to you.
Hey, don't worry. When Ewan McGregor told people don't be racist, they said, "Oh no, you're bullying us for disliking a character." It's not what he said, but you're more than welcome to disagree with Ewan McGregor because it makes you look like tossers. And Bavaria, especially with Hulk Hogan, that would be awkward. Oh bloody hell, yes, that would be. And if we was taking Phase 5 for a bit, so we had a few things yesterday in the night. Up first was Ant-Man. So we had a post that was unveiled yesterday afternoon, just before the panel, about an hour before the poster went up. And they then showed the trailer. Now, for any subscribers of this on our channel, you may have seen me put up a video called the official San Diego Comic-Con Ant-Man and also Quantumania trailer. Now's your moment to comment if you don't understand what on earth that was or is. But for anybody curious at home, I uploaded. We were all in a group chat. Dave, if you're watching, you're in this, and we're all just chatting. Everyone was staying up late for the event, and I was trying to stay awake. Can I just? But well, what if the Paul Rudd meme happened at Comic-Con? For those unfamiliar, that obviously Paul Rudd is an actor. Shouldn't need to type that. And when he would promote his shows and films, he would always, as they do the talk show routes, the press circuits, he'd always go on Conan. I don't know who Conan is. It's not the Barbarian. It's obviously the ginger bloke. I always know him as the South Park movie guy. But anyway, going back to Friends finale in 2004, Paul Rudd went on, told them, I have footage from the finale I'm going to show to you today. And this is all real. This isn't staged. This isn't scripted. This is this happened. And Conan legitimately thought Paul Rudd had got a clip from the finale of Friends for him. And as he pressed play, this terrible footage of a film started. It's called Mac and Me, the film. And it's a kid going down a hill, crashing into the water, and an alien appearing. And I don't know anything but the context of that. And over the decades that have followed, 18 years, sorry, every time Paul Rudd has gone on Conan, he has managed to find a way to play the clip. And he does it in such a great way they don't see it coming. And I think it went viral one final time this year. So for those unfamiliar, sorry to detract in terms of Conan conversation. Conan's obviously not doing talk shows anymore. He's kind of retired but doing a podcast. Paul Rudd went to his house, recorded a podcast, and successfully had this clip played on a Conan podcast because he'd created a 5-minute fake story on the cuff about creating a short film in COVID. And he'd gone so wild with this on-the-spot improv thing that Conan pressed play, and it was the Mac and Me clip. So that's the context. And there's like a supercut on YouTube to watch 20 minutes. But I kind of thought, wouldn't it be great if Paul Rudd did this at Comic-Con? Like, if I was Paul Rudd, I would play that as the trailer. And when I just sort of sat saying, hold on, why didn't I just put it on our YouTube? Because I bet he wouldn't do it at Comic-Con. So I downloaded the poster with it just coming out. I downloaded the clip of the film, and I just uploaded it straight to YouTube. And by the way, it's monetized. That's not monetization from myself or Cinema Savvy. That's a copyright strike from the license holders MGM on the clip of the film. So obviously we're not making any money off the trolling and the adverts in hand with that. Obviously, I didn't want adverts on. I wanted people just to press play and it be on there. But I've just got to say, I'm so proud of that shithouse because I woke up in the morning to a lot of tweets, and half of them were people that know the joke. I'm like, this is fucking incredible, tips hat, all that sort of stuff. And then I also got told, by someone that I should die alone. It did say they work for Fox News, which doesn't surprise me. But sorry to just go on this story. I'm just going to ask you, had you ever heard of this sketch?
No, I hadn't. I did watch the trailer when it came out. I was like, oh, okay. because I'm not in your group chat. I didn't know what was going on, so I watched it and sat
You're
through
like,
the
what the
whole
fuck?
thing. I sat through the whole thing as well. I was like, okay, this is weird. But yeah, it was if Paul Rudd manages to get, I mean, if he managed to get that clip to play at Comic Con, as big as Comic Con is, that's insane. But if they didn't, then
It would have broke the
yeah,
internet.
it would have broke the internet. It would have broke people. I can imagine the legions of people that are Ant-Man fans would have hated it and would have hated Paul Rudd and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Ant-Man is a thing. The fact that you got that trailer out and I saw the view count going up, I was like, this is wild, but okay.
I replied it to Brandon Davis is one of the heads at comicbook.com, and he was in Hall H, and he's like the go-to, like he gets all the scoops. He'll interview a random and ask them about Marvel when they've got nothing to do with Marvel. And he tweeted one in like, I'm in Hall H, who's ready? And I replied saying the Ant-Man trailer's leaked and sent it. And I think that's where the first batch of traffic came in, is because he's like one of the prevalent accounts.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny. But jumping off trolling into the actual real Ant-Man, obviously, you know, they've not shown the trailer to us in the public. So I'm not going to go into, you can choose to read about it, and I'm not going to report, you know, what's been leaked at a convention. But MODOK is confirmed, which I'm sorry, but the Wasp was spoiled that ages ago. The actress that plays the Wasp, she like hashtag MODOK and tagged the actor that's going to play him in it. And I can tell the actor that's playing him is not Billie Eilish. That'd be very different. Bill Murray. Bill Murray's, as rumored, is in the film. He was in the trailer. He's not MODOK, but no one knows really who he's playing. So that's kind of cool in its own right that Bill Murray is going to be an Ant-Man. But kind of, yeah, I mean, just really random. Like, how do you feel with Ant-Man like that? Because we now know that's kickstarting Phase 5, which, you know, with Kang, I mean, I haven't even mentioned Kang till now. Kang's the new big bad, which I'm really, really excited for. I think it makes absolute sense that it's the first film. It's the first bit of content for Phase 5.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're kicking off Phase 5 with Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because Kang is going to be prevalent in that. I mean, we saw him in little bits in like the end of Loki and stuff like that. But the fact that he's going to be the big bad, and they've announced that, and he's going to be prevalent in Quantumania, I think that really makes a lot more sense than anything. It's interesting that you mentioned MODOK as well, because if I'm not mistaken, he has an animated show on Hulu.
Yeah,
we don't have Hulu in the UK, I don't think.
It's on Disney Plus here, but like it's right at the back of their system. Like they don't want anyone to find it.
Yeah.
It's almost like, because it's stop motion. It's Patton Oswalt, I think, that does it, and
Yeah.
I've heard it's okay, but I think they probably don't want people to watch it and think this is part of the MCU.
Yeah,
Certainly
MCU,
here more so than America.
Yeah.
But yeah, MODOK. I mean, I don't know how the hell. I'm really curious how MODOK's going to look in a film like that.
Yeah,
That's
he's
going
just
to
a
like
big
give
head in the
children
jar.
nightmares.
Yeah,
it's going to give
he's a
children
head in the
nightmares.
jar.
Like,
So yeah,
I can't
but
wait.
yeah, it'd be really interesting.
Yeah, and also the Guardians were there. So the whole Guardians cast, I think, bar Dave Bautista and Zoe Saldana were there. Obviously, one of those is filming Dune at the moment. I don't know where Zoe Saldana was, probably filming something. Zoe, very busy person. And James Gunn came out and they confirmed that Guardians Volume 3, they said, is the last Guardians film of this Guardians, however people will choose or want to interpret that. I interpret that as the Guardians are done and dusted, but if someone else brought them back, they'd have a different team. But I don't think anyone's going to bring them back because these are the guys to make happen. He did say it doesn't mean I'm going to kill everybody, but they said in the talk that the heavy focus of the film is actually on Rocket and the origins of Rocket. I know that there's a clip of him in the trailer that is Baby Rocket apparently, so we all know how that's going to go down next year. And they unveiled the High Evolutionary as a character for the film. I can never pronounce his name. I'm so sorry. I'm not even going to embarrass myself trying. It's the actor from Peacemaker that played one of the butterflies who was in the team. One of the few Peacemaker cast members that's been carried over into this. And he came out in full costume. He was the head of the squad. Sorry, I should have said who he's played. He was like the head of the group. he came out in full costume, just walked the Hall H floor and went up on stage, did a few words and left. And that's kind of it for Guardians. I mean, listen, the Guardians are like an exception in Marvel. That if you rewind the clocks to 2014, they were the original Risk. Are they going to be able to do like a Marvel thing in space? And like Guardians are like the sort of like the love children. They're like one of everyone's favorite thing. Everyone's got a favorite Guardian. There's video games now on the PS5 for them. There's like a spin-off. The comics are massive, and it's really interesting. I'm kind of like quite excited about being the last one because I think James Gunn. I think we're very lucky we've even had him back with everything that kicked off with Disney. Obviously, that wasn't Feige that's acting, that was Disney themselves. I'm really happy that he's going to have the chance to come back. He's going to have the chance to finish his story.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be really polite, I don't think the Guardians are going to really be like a phase 5 type thing. Like I think they might feel very standalone in the same way that this probably would have been phase 4 had they not have sacked him.
Yeah.
Because he then went off to do Peacemaker and Suicide Squads, which similar release dates and issues as phase 4 stuff. So I was talking about Guardians, but how do you feel with it all?
I'm really interested. I mean, I'm just happy to see Adam Warlock because he was teased at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and that came out however long ago. And he's always been there. He's just never been mentioned since then. So I'm really interested. And it's an interesting casting choice as well. Will Poulter, he's a good actor though. I like him. So hopefully he does well. Hopefully that character... I mean, in the comics, he's a big part of like Infinity War and the Infinity stuff. So it would have been nice to see him in there, but if we didn't. So yeah, hopefully he does well. Hopefully, I mean, I know that they introduced the High Evolutionary as their main villain. That's interesting because I would have thought that he would have been part of Eternals more than anything because that's what he sort of in the comics. That's the sort of presence he has. He's about deviants and sort of mutants and stuff like that. But I'd be interested to see how they use him.
Yeah. I mean, based off the little knowledge I know of the character, I think he's probably involved with the origin of Rocket, just based off like basic info on him. So that would be interesting how that pans out. Obviously, the trailer was shown to them, nothing to us. I'm sure D23 will get something. That's always the big thing. D23 is like the answer to all the questions. And one other phase 5 we want to speak about is obviously Daredevil Reborn. Now, Daredevil obviously cropped up in the trailer for She-Hulk, so we know he's going to be in the series. And now we know that he's going to get an 18-episode season. Is it the last TV show of Phase 5? Yes, it is.
It is
Daredevil Born Again, Disney Plus. Very curious. Again, when there's more information, I'll be able to... I've only seen seasons 1 and 2 of the Netflix series. I never saw season 3. I dropped off the whole watching everything in order, in sync, and all that stuff. I really quickly dropped off. So I've only seen the first 2 seasons of Daredevil, but no one doesn't want Charlie Cox back, and I think there's a reason why they're bringing him back. He is a big name for Marvel. But how do you feel? Like, is 18 episodes, is that too steep?
Oh no, not for Daredevil. If it was anyone else, like if they'd done like Miss Marvel or Hawkeye for 18 episodes, that would have been a bit okay. But Daredevil, he's established, he's beloved as a character. I mean, the fact that he had 3 seasons on Netflix and they were all so well received. I think 18 episodes isn't too bad. Like, I'll watch those, and there's no gripe about 18 episodes at all.
Yeah, it's like a third of the year if they do it weekly. So I'm very curious about this strategy.
Yeah.
But either way, I'm sold, and I think a lot of people will be. So again, that's phase 5. We'll bring up on screen once more. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 projects. There's one that's not been brought up, which is Armor Wars, which a lot of people are tweeting about today. People think it could be part of phase 6. People think they might have dropped it. We'll find out at D23. I don't think they've dropped it. They're setting up too much. But we move forward. Because I, like most people, didn't expect to see phase 6 being called a thing yesterday, let alone phase 5 being a thing. We now have a phase 6. We have a calendar for phase 6. And it's going to begin with the Fantastic Four in November 2024. Obviously, everything's been left blank. That's not the Fantastic Four. And of course, 2 new Avengers films. Avengers The Kang Dynasty, May the 2nd, 2025. And Avengers Secret Wars, November the 7th, 2025. Ayman, jumping over to you. Before we even talk Fantastic Four, did you expect those Avengers announcements?
No, definitely not. I think it's bold for them to do 2 Avengers films in one phase. But if it works, it works. Secret Wars, that's surprising. I'd be interested to see how they set that up. But I mean, I imagine that's not the full slate for Phase 6. There's going to be more that they're going to drop in there. They just haven't announced it yet.
D23.
D23 will be one of those. I don't think they'll do anything with that at D23, or not to the extent that they'll do Phase 5. Probably a Fantastic Four cast announcement, maybe.
Director minimum, I think. It's interesting. I mean, let's talk Fantastic Four, because we now know that oh god, I've forgotten his name. The director that did the John Watts, of course, the other Spider-Man trilogy. He has left Fantastic Four. He was on board for that, and he is right now shooting a brand new Star Wars series in America. And he basically, when he dropped out of Fantastic Four just before the Star Wars announcement, he said it's because he was a bit burnt out. Well, it was hinted at being burnt out from Marvel, that he'd done 3 properties back to back to back, and he wanted a bit of breath of fresh air, which jumps to Star Wars. It's fresh air to a point, but it's Star Wars, isn't it? So it's still bigger. And what was interesting is that the rumors at the time of that Kevin Feige wants a steady. Well, he wants a director that he doesn't have to look over. He wants somebody like Sam Raimi that's maybe established, maybe has handled big films before, that he doesn't need to oversee the entire project. And I think that's absolutely the right mentality for Fantastic Four. I think if you were a director that doesn't like comic book films, the chances, I mean, this sounds really weird, but if you're sort of not against them, but you've got more chance of finding a more stable director for something like Fantastic Four compared to something really niche.
Yeah.
And it will be because everybody knows Fantastic Four. Like, I think growing up pre-Marvel films and stuff, everyone probably knew Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Fantastic Four. You know, there's like the top line of where these comic book characters are in the prestige status, and Fantastic Four is that. And I think same as you, D23, we will have announcements of sorts. I still have this weird feeling that I don't know if John Krasinski is going to play Mr. Fantastic. I'm like 60% sure he is, but I also still feel like the Doctor Strange cameo could also be like an inside nod of the head, but also it could be too obvious that he will play him. Am I a bit mad in that respect?
I mean, I want him to play Mr. Fantastic. We're going into Doctor Strange 2, that was the only thing that I wanted out of cameos. I know there were loads of rumors going about and stuff like that. I mean, we knew that Charles Xavier was going to be played by Patrick Stewart, so that was one of those. We didn't know who was going to be Mr. Fantastic, if Mr. Fantastic was going to be in the Illuminati. I'd want him to come back as Mr. Fantastic. Hopefully, I got fingers crossed for that. Because he's a fan cast as well. Essentially, that's how he came about. So hopefully they do carry on with that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think it seems so obvious that, you know, if we do find out, I think that people always joked about Emily Blunt being the Invisible Woman because obviously they're married, etc. I'm just very curious about Fantastic Four as a project, and I will say this: I'm glad they are taking their time. They haven't rushed Fantastic Four. They've not, thrown stuff around. I think Bavaria is speaking here about the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. I think they are connected. The first will be the big threat. One movie between that shows the results of the first one, and the second Avenge of the Resolution. This is a really interesting thing about Phase 6. I mean, if I'm going to group it, we now have been told and confirmed that Phase 4, 5, and 6 is now a saga, and it is the multiverse saga. The question I have, I'm going to pose to you, which is something we kind of spoke about in Miss Marvel, me and Tate spoke about it in Thor, is the big old F word, fatigue. Because based off last night's announcement, I was absolutely living it. Just chaos, announcements, everything. I was like, this is great. And I woke up this morning, that was a grumpy old man, but I was like 25 projects across like 30 projects across like 3 years, maybe. Like, so how am I going to be able to cope with this? And at the moment, I'm not going to try and bash Comic-Con, but the Thor film is making money. It's making a lot of money, but it's underperforming their original analysts' box office expectations. It looks like it's going to gross less than Doctor Strange on current trajectory, and Doctor Strange is only 950 mil. It's not like I'm saying it's a flop. It's not at all, and I don't mean that. But when the biggest franchise that coasts over 1 billion almost every film is sort of not there, or at least it's big names. You think a fourth Thor film would be a certified 1 billion plus, and it's had this negative reception. It's kind of, last night's been fascinating for me because I'm there like again moaning about fatigue, but now I know where the plan is heading. I'm also slightly more reserved because until last night, and I'm not bothered about where the plan's heading, but it just felt like an amalgamation of let's announce stuff for the sake of it. And I know people might disagree, so bear with me because I'm just trying to formulate the words as well. But now it feels like there's a path of sorts, but also I'm very worried that I know I can keep up. That's me. I'm talking about, can the general audience keep up? Because they're the ones that make these films financially lucrative, not the fans. And I know it sounds silly, but just people really need to realize that like the niche of the industry is, if you can bring in the general audience, that's where your money comes from. And I don't know if this is a potential to backfire, although I agree and I like this, what I'm seeing from this moving forwards. I've got a bit of a realistic head thinking, is it sustainable?
Yeah, it's one of those, because I mentioned it in the Miss Marvel review as well. There is that fatigue going on. It is bold of them to do 30 projects in 2-3 years. I think that's a preliminary thought though, and they're sort of building in. They're saying this is the plan for now. I mean, they might push stuff back. I mean, it's not going to be to COVID levels where they push stuff back, but they might rejig stuff and delay stuff, which might. I think what they'll do is they'll sort of take into account what the sort of audience is saying and stuff like that, and then if they feel the need to push it, and if people are saying we're getting this Marvel fatigue, then they'll rejig stuff, push stuff back as needed, and spread stuff out. Hopefully that's what they do, because that I didn't realize it was about 30 projects, and that's a lot. It's one of those.
And again, this doesn't show stuff like What If, the animated stuff that isn't tied into it. And again, how do you tell the general audience that's not part of the MCU? It's really interesting, and there's going to be big conversations. And I'd love to have had one tonight, but I am going to hold firm on a specific Marvel discussion until D23. Because I think that's going to be where the big, the rest of the bridge is filled in with directors' names, actors, etc. But as long as the movies and series are different, I'm okay. Not sure if casual fans see it the same way. And I think it's that precisely because we know the movies and series are different, whereas for a lot of people watching at home, the films are almost like a TV show that you have to watch. You get like 3 or 4 a year, you watch each one, and it builds into something. Adding the shows in, like having like a new bit of Marvel a week, is a big test, and I think others, have struggled. And kind of rounding off that, because we've been going over 2 hours, which I didn't think we'd go as long as tonight. Maybe it's the best thing there's 2 of us. I actually want to really quickly bring up something. So we'll speak about Black Panther in a moment, but with it being the multiverse saga, we did a retrospective on this channel last year, the Infinity Saga retrospective across lockdown, which was great. We're able to do all of the the Infinity Saga films. And kind of in line with that today, I spent a bit of time editing. I didn't get all of them done. I wanted to bring it for you, but we're rebranding all of our Marvel stuff. So on our channel, moving forwards, anything you see from Phase 4, we're going to Phase 5 and Phase 6 down the line, will all have a new theme. So if I'm going to break the new Miss Marvel thumbnail, very similar to last year. Last year we had purple, the Infinity Saga retrospective. We are now going to be going through and updating all of our previous ones. We've got Doctor Strange there as well. We've got Black Widow. So as I said, over the coming weeks, keep an eye out. We've got a new theme. There's a lot of Marvel stuff. I always say Marvel isn't going away. And if you are like me, you've got the OCD of thumbnails. This is going to be a lot nicer. It's going to be good on the eye. And I just need to update, as I said, everything that's already happened in Phase 4 and moving forward with Phase 5. Because we're all curious about, what could come, what could be announced. And again, I'd love to theorize about what could be announced, but I do think any form of that's best way is after D23. I think D23 is going to be long-term announcements. We're going to have a Shang-Chi sequel, I'm sure. And I'm sure that'll be part of Phase 6. And I think we're going to get a lot of those gaps filled out at that time. But very quickly, we've also got Dave in the comments correcting the thumbnails. I appreciate that. Listen, I like doing thumbnail stuff. I like the OCD of it. And when it's all done, it will look very organized and very neat. But yeah, so as I said, if you havenent checked out our old Marvel stuff, then you're more than welcome to. There are a lot of playlists on the channel. There's a film playlist. There's a TV playlist. There's so many things. And I said, Ayman, you joined us on Miss Marvel last week. But if I'm going to pose you a question, speak about fatigue. I want to actually jump to Black Panther. Sorry, because I'm starting to get tired. That sounds really horrible. How do you? I mean, the show the panel ended with Black Panther, which I think we knew we'd get Wakanda Forever stuff. I think. I'm not gonna lie. I was really happy that it was at the end because it's the first Comic-Con since 2019 in person, since Chadwick Boseman's passed away. And of course, promoting a new film. That's the 3-year window of a lot of different things happening. Some things far more important than a film. And obviously, we've not seen anything from the marketing, any trailers, and nothing for this coming out in November. You've got it's literally an Oscar-winning film pre-hand, and they dropped that trailer, and I'm instantly saying that, and it's not just because of the situation, but that's the best trailer Marvel has dropped for as long as I can remember. Maybe even since Infinity War, because there's something about that trailer that's come out that maybe no, ignore me, way past Infinity War. I'm trying to think last time there's an actual wow trailer for Marvel, because normally they're so similar, they're so cut the same, and that this felt like a proper film without disrespecting the entire MCU.
Yeah, it looks really interesting. I mean, I think they're really playing on Chadwick Boseman's passing and how that character is gonna have a massive impact on the film. And I imagine that they're gonna sort of, in the greatest respect, kill off the character, so I think that's going to be a lot. They're playing a lot on the loss. I mean, the Queen Mother has, the Queen has that sort of line in the trailer of you've taken my whole family, stuff like that. I think it's really interesting, and yeah, it is one of the more unique ones. But yeah, it's good that they dropped it at the end, and we finally have a trailer for a film that's coming out in 2-3 months. So I'm really looking forward to it.
And I think as well with the public eye, people may know why aren't all these trailers released. I kind of knew we'd get Wakanda Forever and She-Hulk for public viewing, because you don't want to drop 4 trailers on the same night, because you're damaging your trailers in turn for that. You'd be damaging Guardians or whatnot, or any of those. And I think to release the ones in the Hall H for the fans there, I've got no issue with that. And again, for the people at home, the Black Panther one, everyone's been watching, everyone's been speaking about it today, and that film is going to be massive. And I think actually, with the trailer coming closest to the production, that might help it, because we've now got 4 months until that film comes out. And yes, there's She-Hulk, but the last 4, if you take the clocks about 4 months ago for Marvel, I'm pretty sure we've had 2 or 3 shows and 2 films. And that's where the fatigue word comes in. Whereas now, this 4-month gap, I think, is going to do Black Panther all the good in the world. And then even moving into Ant-Man in February, that's going to have helped Ant-Man, that you can have a gap in between. So It's an interesting predicament. And I guess one question everyone's asking is, who do you think the new Black Panther is? Because obviously, we get to see somebody, but just not who.
I think. Well, it's interesting. I was thinking Shuri to begin with, but I mean, can't remember the character's name now. But the one from the first one, that
Lupita Nyong'o. Is it
yeah,
Nakia?
no, not her. Sorry, the one that challenges Chadwick Boseman.
Mbagu?
M'Baku. Yeah, I think it might be him. Because we see him in the trailer as well. Just as a normal sort of guy. As a leader. So maybe it's him, but yeah, we won't know for sure until more stuff comes out. Really.
No, 100%. And I think that's going to be the best way to round out this video. Again, there was a lot of San Diego. This video's gone a lot longer. I thought it's been an hour and a half with 3 people, and it's been 2 hours 10 with 2. So again, thank you for coming on a Sunday night, looking not just Marvel, but all of San Diego, looking at the trailers. Thanking everybody at home who's been commenting along, who's been talking about this. And if you are watching it on demand, you're watching it maybe tomorrow whilst you're working or across an evening this week. Please let us know your thoughts. So comment your thoughts on San Diego Comic-Con 2022. All the big announcements, what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, what you think might happen, what you think didn't happen. And, we've mentioned D23 a lot. That's probably the next convention we'll cover on the channel. I think it's running from September the 9th. September the 9th till September the 11th, I believe. 3-day weekend. There's going to be Star Wars. There's going to be Marvel. There's going to be a lot of things happening with that. So if you're a fan of film, please consider hitting the subscribe button. There's a lot of things happening. And with a video like this, all the films we spoke about today, we'll probably end up covering at some point. And somehow the TV shows, we do find a way, and we try to find a way. And for everybody at home that doesn't subscribe to us already, or get us on social medias, that's where we announce these videos. Go get us on our Twitter and Instagram at cinema_savvy, Facebook and letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, and we have a link to Redbubble in the description below where you can pick up some of our merch. It does help support the channel and keep everything running smooth, so please do consider that if you ever get the chance. And what is coming up on the channel? It's a busy week. There's a review coming out on Tuesday. The Steven Spielberg retrospective continues as we take on Amistad. So please do check that out. And there's been a lot of stuff. Ayman, you're on Miss Marvel with me last week. We had a review out for Light and Magic, which streams this Wednesday. And we've got a potential review tomorrow evening for a film I can't name yet, but I haven't seen it yet. So that's potentially tomorrow what I'll be working on. So everybody at home, thank you for jumping on. Ayman specifically as well for helping me outside this. I really appreciate it. And we will get on for some more. Of course, we've hinted at a lot of TV shows coming up, and we'll get on for some of those certainly. So once again, thank you all for watching. Take care. Have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next time.